Okay, it's going to call the meeting to order. It's 6 o'clock on Tuesday, August 28th, Committee of the Whole meeting. Tonight we have our MP from Cumberland St. Paul with us as a delegation. She'll be opening up with the meeting, so we'll get you to talk about the topic about cannabis. That's where you were.
Sure. Oh, do you want me to go right now?
Yes, please.
All right. Well, thank you, Council, very much for having me today. It's a real honor to be here. It's my first time speaking formally in front of you, and certainly the first time since new councils come in as a whole since the last municipal election. So congratulations to all of you. And been hearing, obviously, as we all have very positive things about positive direction and some good things happening with St. Paul. So thank you for hard work on behalf of our joint constituents. And of course, West St. Paul is a really very important part of the community that I represent in Ottawa. And for those who don't know, of course, I have West St. Paul, East St. Paul, North Kildonan, Garden City, Riverbend. It's quite a large area. And West St. Paul is unique as every neighborhood in my community is. But certainly there are issues that your voters and my voters equally have across the riding that I represent, which is about 100,000 people. And so very happy to come here from you and glad to have that informal chat before we got going about some of your priorities, and I think we're certainly very aligned on a number of those. So looking forward to building on this and working together to ensure we're delivering for our voters and ensuring that West St. Paul continues to grow at the pace it's comfortable with and continues to thrive as part of the greater Winnipeg metropolitan region. And so certainly I know there was some questions. I'll be talking about a few things. I know crime is on the minds of everyone. I know that recently you've had breaking dinner, so I'm happy to talk about a little bit of the crime work that I've been doing. I am, as you may know, the Public Safety Shadow Minister for Canada, so my role in Ottawa in Parliament on behalf of your voters and the broader Canadian people is to hold the Liberal government accountable for public safety matters. The Department of Public Safety federally is responsible for the RCMP, CBSA, which is our Border Security Agency, CSIS, which is our Spy Intelligence Agency, and also Corrections Canada, among other things, notably the Firearms Act, which can be certainly a very important issue to those in the community that I've heard from that own firearms and wish to see firearm ownership continue in a responsible way. So those are some of the areas that I am responsible for ensuring are being delivered in the public safety lens from the Liberal government. So I'll speak a little bit about crime, and then certainly we'll talk about cannabis, since I know that certainly at a municipal level that is really impacting the quality of life of residents that are impacted by it. So from a crime perspective, I just did want to read you some of the recent statistics that's come out of Stats Canada. So every year, Stats Canada publishes where we're at with violent crime and crime in general, and unfortunately over the last 8 years of the current Liberal government, so since 2015, we've seen an alarming trend that certainly should concern all of us, especially municipalities who are responsible for funding first responders, whether that's paramedics, firefighters, police, and the like. And so we've seen overall a 39% increase of violent crime. That's considerable. It was 40% increase in 8 years. That accounts to well over 124,000 additional violent crimes annually. This is not petty crime, this is violent crime against, for the most part, innocent individuals, and often from repeat violent offenders. We also have gang-related homicides in Canada of 108%. Murders are up 43%. It's the highest in 30 years, almost as long as I've been alive. There has not been this many murders in Canada. We've also seen specifically a 66% increase in murders in Toronto, 55% in Vancouver, 38% Montreal. It's also alarmingly high in Winnipeg, as I'm sure you've heard. Having the murder capital of Canada sort of recognition is not one that any one city strives for, but that seems to be consistently something that finds itself in Manitoba, and certainly has been impacted by recent crime trends.
Are those murders gang related?
Almost exclusively, it seems, the increase of murders is gang-related. Again, gang-related homicides have doubled in 8 years. So why is this? Well, there's certainly a number of things. I think it's important to acknowledge that there's no one solution to crime. I think we all know that. But to say that the federal government doesn't have a role is also inaccurate. We, of course, have a public safety minister for a reason. We have a justice minister and attorney general of Canada that's responsible for the criminal code. So anyone who suggests that the Liberal government or Conservative federal government couldn't have an impact on crime is unfortunately not correct. Of course they do. That's why we have a criminal code that's governed at the federal level. We also have the RCMP, or National Police Force, that certainly has a hand in dealing with crime, also federal judges. But there's provincial levels as well, importance as well, and provincial jail system, provincial bail system, remand center, judges, things like that, of course, justice of the peace, and of course there's municipal policing, has a huge hand in that as well. But we have seen a massive statistical increase in bail. Violent repeat offenders with very long rap sheets getting bail. So they get arrested, the judge or justice of the peace lets them out on bail before their trial. And so this is in part related to a 2019 federal Liberal piece of legislation that they brought in to reform our bail system. And so some of the stuff in that bill was not bad. It actually was great in terms of violence against women. There were some parts of there that seemed to have been, I've received good feedback from police that it helped them provide some more tools. So, but that bill was over 200 pages long, and a significant portion of it had to do with areas that are now coming home to roost, so to speak, in a negative way. And so the Liberals overall have said, well, we were just implementing court rulings to ensure that everyone has a right to trial before they are spending time in a penitentiary, just to make it, to sum it up. The problem is, if someone has, as you know, a very long rap sheet of violent behavior of hurting others, perhaps those should be the ones that are not let out on bail. Because what we're seeing is people being murdered by someone out on bail. You'll remember in January there was a young OPP officer, Ontario police officer, who walked up to a truck in the ditch, and the man in the driver's seat shot him. And that man had a lifetime weapons prohibition order, was never allowed to own a firearm the rest of his life, and was out on bail at the time. There was just a young mom, I think 42, in a suburb of Toronto that was shot and killed by a stray bullet in a gang-related turf dispute outside a safe injection site. We also saw a father of 7, this is again just these two in the last few weeks, outside of a public transit station in Edmonton that was stabbed to death by someone out on bail. So I can go on and on and on. There's an endless stream of this, unfortunately, and the solution is very clear. We need to tighten up the criminal code so that those who have very long rap sheets of violent behavior are not getting out on bail. That's one aspect of this. Another is parole. On the other hand, they've served their time. We seem to have a notorious justice system for having people released early. And again, if good behavior, I'm not an expert, we need to make sure that people are serving their time, but if they've reformed themselves, then there's parole for a reason. But there's a pendulum that seems to have swung far too far to the early release. And when I met with parole officers across the country, in particular in Winnipeg, what I've heard is in 2015 there was a change to have more people released more quickly. So you're having a greater influx of those who served some of their time, and yet there was no corresponding investment in parole officers, which are ultimately the last line of defense for dealing with those trying to reintegrate. So you're having big caseloads, and you're having more people that have dangerous records, sex offenders, murderers, people who serve time. That has some issues as well. We need to be looking at ensuring we're not allowing people out that could be or have violent tendencies that have not been fully resolved. That's also an issue. Of course, we just saw the largest mass stabbing in Canadian history. The third largest mass casualty in history was just last fall in Saskatchewan, first in the northern First Nations. I think 17 people were sent to hospital. About a dozen were butchered to death by men out on parole. So again, we have a number of issues in that regard. The last thing I'll say is what the Liberals have changed is they brought in really a lot of conditional sentencing, which is in essence house arrest. And they passed a bill in the fall called Bill C-5 that ended a number of mandatory minimum sentences or mandatory prison sentences, and in favor of house arrest, for example. But what's happened now is people who've committed sexual assault, rape. There's 5 different cases just since the fall, since the bill passed, that rapists now are serving house arrest rather than 1 day in prison. And I have a very strong opinion, obviously, I think as most people do, about that. Also things like drive-by shootings, no longer a mandatory prison time in Canada. So this is sort of an area, I think, that just doesn't meet the common sense public safety approach. Our leader, Pierre Poilievre, and myself are of the firm position that people who are young and make 1 or 2 innocent or difficult mistakes should not have a lifetime in and out of prison. but we're talking about dangerous, lifelong, repeat violent offenders that should not be released. And every single premier in the country and every single municipal police force in the country, to my knowledge, is supportive of reform in these areas, particularly of bail. And so that is something that I've been working along with Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives since I've been appointed to this role now it's actually almost 2 years ago, that we need bail reform. And this is one of the primary pillars of the Conservative Party right now, in addition to our growing our economy and cost of living, which is of course first and foremost in everyone's mind. And we certainly have the most competitive and policies when it comes to growing our economy, cutting taxes, ensuring the inflation is coming down, responsible spending of taxpayer dollars, which we have not seen in quite some time. I won't go into that as much, given that crime is certainly my area of expertise as the critic for public safety, but just to suffice to say that cost of living, as I'm sure you've heard from your supporters and those in West St. Paul, is a growing concern. And certainly our primary objective to get that under control should there be a federal Conservative majority government under Pierre Poilievre. I'm happy to answer any questions about our policies in that regard as well. What I would say as well, we can talk about cannabis. Actually, I can wind up with that, and then if you have some questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. But on the cannabis issue, it's quite concerning, and I think you've been hearing the same thing as me. It seems that there are homes being bought up for the sole purpose of growing cannabis plants. There's extreme odors associated with this. There's peculiar behavior going on at these homes. It's concerning for a number of issues. Of course, the odor can be very, very toxic, smell very, very toxic. It's especially concerning for seniors and children. I've heard stories in Winnipeg how, moms will be, drying their clothes on the clothing line for their kids and send their kids to school the next day and get calls from the teacher saying your kid smells like marijuana. So it's quite extreme in some regards, and everyone wants a peaceful life. We all pay property taxes, and the idea that you're sort of boxed in around so-called grow-ups, I think is very infuriating from what I've heard from folks who have to deal with this, and I think that's very understandable. It's also unsettling given the peculiar behavior. We're seeing similar trucks going to each location in Winnipeg, or several of them, or there was in the past. There's similar security systems, bags of something being pulled out. And it doesn't appear that anyone's actually really living at many of these locations. And as I mentioned to you earlier, the problem here is not your individual who has medical needs for a few cannabis plants, which they technically have the right to at the federal level, where they can get from Health Canada an approved prescription from a doctor to grow some medical cannabis plants. Manitoba, as you know, you're not allowed to recreationally grow it for personal use, but you are allowed to get it at the federal level for medical use. So that, I have not really met many people that have an issue with that. I have no personal issue with that. My issue is anyone who decides to abuse that, and given that there is a Health Canada regulatory loophole where there is no limit on how many plants can be prescribed by a doctor, how many grams per day, which is associated with how many plants. So we are finding, allegedly, that there are some doctors somewhere in Canada who are prescribing mass amounts of plants per year for an individual, and you can have up to 4 licenses per household, which roughly amounts to a maximum of about 2,000 plants in a bungalow, which is obscene and completely wrecks the property value of that home and impacts the property values of the homes around them. And there's obviously, as mentioned earlier, there's no possible way that someone can consume that much cannabis, from my understanding. When I talked to the federal Liberals about this, and we sort of figured out why is this happening? Why is there not some sort of common sense limit on how much a doctor can prescribe you? The response I've gotten is very bureaucratic. One, it's, well, there's no studies to indicate how much a maximum would be. My common sense approach to that would say, well, can we put a limit on and then do the research and figure it out? Can we put a reasonable limit on what that would be? And just, take an educated guess for now, or something to that effect. That would eliminate the problem right away. If you can only get a prescription for 10 plants or 15 or whatever it is, that would mean that there's only perhaps 10 or 15, maybe 30 plants in one house. So you wouldn't have 2,000 plants in a home. So that would be something at the federal level that would bring immediate change to this issue. There's also only, my understanding, unless it's changed in the last year, 2 inspectors on this for all of Western Canada. So if your constituent calls you and you say, and they call the police, let's say, all the police can do is come by, look at a prescription, maybe count the plants, and they have to go on their way because, again, this person's following the law. That's my understanding there. And then if we call Health Canada and they send an investigator, well, there's only 2 of them for a very large geographic area. And really, if they have the prescription and if they have ventilation, there's just really not a lot that can be done. So, at the federal level, we need a change of government, or certainly a change of policy. I have received no indication that the Liberals are interested at all in that. They have spent considerable time and resources in looking at, decriminalizing drugs and, of course, legalizing marijuana generally for personal use a few years ago. So, my objective assessment, I think, is that perhaps it's just not really a priority to limit access to this, as it would be perhaps. The concerns solely in the light that should not be abused to the impact of other neighbors and for safety concerns and property values as I outlined. And again, just to reiterate, just to conclude, there's no personal issue with someone using medical marijuana. That's within their own area and their own rights federally. But to abuse it, and there is an indication that some of this is connected to criminal activity, is a grave concern and should be to all elected officials. We should not be supporting organized crime with poor Health Canada regulation, and it seems to be the case in many cases, both in Winnipeg and across the country. Lastly, there is some progress being made on this. I spoke to Winnipeg City Council about 2 years ago when they were looking at a regulation change to try to do something about this, because there are neighborhoods in Winnipeg that are literally being taken over. And what they brought forward, what they passed, was you need a permit now. You need to be an industrial area, a permit to grow medical marijuana. Basically, there's a roughly that's what the change has been. And so they are leaders in this regard. There aren't many jurisdictions in Canada to figure out solutions, and it seems to have made some progress, though some progress remains to be made. But ultimately, it's necessitated that if you're going to grow a vast amount of plants, you need to move it into industrial space. And again, this is a respectful approach to homeowners around you. So that seems to be what has worked for them. I encourage you to look at some of the details and speak with your civic counterparts of best practices that are there. They did an extensive study and public consultation on this. So not that, if there's any advice I could offer, just from what I've heard from your civic counterparts in Winnipeg, there's no need to reinvent the wheel or spend a lot of your municipal dollars on doing a lot of that work over again. They have done a lot of it. So if you're looking for a solution, I'd recommend you reach out and meet with them on some of those details. But I have done significant advocacy on that, so it's great to see some changes made, and hopefully if there's a federal conservative government, we can have a federal approach to this that is unified across the country, so municipalities are not left to scramble on this, but while still respecting the needs of individual users. And so beyond crime, cannabis, and cost of living, I'm happy to discuss whatever other federal topic you're interested in. But again, thank you very much for having me today, and looking forward to working together in the years to come.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions from Councillor Clyburn?
Yes, so what I don't understand is that when a cannabis license is issued for growing, and I know somebody that has one, they're allowed about 4 plants. And 4 plants are sufficient for the one person. So even if you had 4 people in a resident that all needed cannabis for medical purposes, that still would only be 16 plants in total. And that's more than enough for 4 people. So I'm just wondering how doctors can turn around and say you need 200 plants in a facility. And I think that if the Liberal government actually went to the people that are currently using their licenses properly and asked them, how many plants do you have, how many plants do you use, what is your supply chain, what does it look like, how long does it last you, that would be sufficient as a guideline for issuing licenses into the future. But if you're having a grow up where you're having 200 plants, then clearly you're running a business, and that business should be somewhere else, not in a residential area. And I think maybe if we attack it from that perspective, that if your medical license allows you 200 plants, then you need to find a facility where you can grow them properly, but it isn't a house. It's the same thing that we find when we have people running businesses in their homes. At one point or another, there is a business that's run in a home that it doesn't have impact on traffic, it doesn't have impact on the neighbors. You're doing your paperwork in your house, you're a CPA, right? You're doing your work. But then there's the business where there's construction and there's 20 cars out front and there's trucks and there's equipment. That is now putting an impact on your street, and now we're asking you, no, you're running a business that is impacting the residents, you're now not considered residential, you need to move. And I think this is the same thing that the federal government could take into consideration, is when we see something like that, we have to step in and say, no, this is not for personal use anymore, because you're exceeding what is actually needed for one individual or even 4 individuals. And they have to come up with some kind of regulation or some kind of system, which I think would be very simple. You can talk to the cannabis stores, for crying out loud, of how much somebody needs in one day, right? And I think it's just, I'm going to say it straight out, because I would say it if I was in Parliament, it's laziness on their part, not addressing this issue. And it's impacting people everywhere. And they've created the monster, and they need to rein it in. It's time. So my message to the Liberal government is rein it in and start doing your homework, because this is a very, very simple solution. The other thing is, we have cannabis that is now legal. So to say, well, you can grow it in your home, yes, you can grow it in your home, but it is available at a very reasonable price at a store as well. So my question then at that point would be, why do you need to grow it? Why can't you purchase it? Because we've made it readily and fully available at a reasonable cost to everybody. So that's the other issue that I think needs to be explored on that front. So just my comments.
Thank you very much. Councilor Bichetti?
I'm going to change the topic off of the cannabis area and go to the RCMP. As you stated, the violent crimes and the murders and all that have been going up, and we have quarterly meetings with our RCMP sergeant, and it's disturbing to say, like, we have residents that say, we don't see them RCMP enough, we don't see them coming through the communities. We're seeing some crime stats going up, but yet we keep hearing that there's not a full complement. They're never at a full complement. With the growing communities, not just here, but right across Canada, I'd like to see that complement, at full complement, plus exceeding that. Like, is there any talk of increasing the number of RCMP officers per office? Like, you look at ours out of East St. Paul, till 5 or 6 o'clock at night, there's somebody there, but they've got a catchment area that's from here to an hour and a half away from here. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, when they're down and it's run out of Selkirk or wherever the office is, it's trying to get back to this area, or not just this area, East St. Paul, wherever it may be. Just the complement's not there to, I guess, not prioritize, but put people in certain areas so that they're covering this many staff in this area and staying within that half-hour limit, not an hour and a half. They could be out at Grand Beach, and we're getting calls at this area. They have a major incident out there. There's nobody left to cover this area, or East St. Paul, or any other. So that's I guess I hate hearing that every time we talk to our sergeant, that there are not enough in their complement of officers between sick leave and then, there's other leaves that people are going to be on, so.
I think you're bringing that up. It's a very important topic, and I think there is a community vulnerability that people are feeling. And you hope you don't have to call 911, but when you do, you assume that the ambulance or the police car is going to be there right away. But to your point, if your catchment area is very large, as is the West St. Paul community, then that may not be something you think about until you have to think about it, and it's been half an hour since you called. And thankfully, not a lot of people have to call the police, but when you do, you assume that they'll be there right away. This is something that we're hearing more and more, and I'm hearing the same thing from every municipal police force across the country, every RCMP officer that I talk to, and on a formal basis, certainly, there is incredible fatigue. There's also, of course, that job you're dealing with PTSD and job exhaustion, not to mention the last number of years with movements like the Defund the Police movement, that deeply impacts police morale. So we have to remember that we want people, like you said, we want more police officers, not less, but that means we need more people going into recruitment for police, people to feel pride in their police, people to feel pride becoming a police officer. Our sons and daughters being very proud to put the uniform on to serve and protect their community, ensure justice is served in many regards. And so that movement has, and anyone who doesn't think that it hasn't, they are wrong. I have talked to police officers from every corner almost of this country, and it certainly impacts morale, and you can understand it, right? You go to work every day, you kiss your family goodbye, and you may be facing bullets from gang members. You may be, someone may be coming after you with a shiv, or a person who's dealing with serious drug addiction is becoming very violent. And so that's a tough job as it is, and to not be appreciated for stepping up and serving in that role and coming to the aid of the vulnerable can be very difficult. So I feel very passionate about that part in particular, that elected officials, yourselves, myself, other levels of government, we need to stand up for our police officers. Of course, there are issues we need to move forward on. Of course, there are things that we can do better and things that can improve. That's always the case with our governing institutions that need to continue to evolve. But I think number one, if we can speak from a place of pride and support on an emotional level even, I think that it's very well placed for recruiting police officers and growing RCMP members. It's a tough job, a lot of time. I would also say that more to my issue of crime, it's difficult for police to keep up, as you said, with the crime trends. I've heard this so many times, again, from every major city, police force, there's what people don't understand necessarily, but in, let's say, the city of Winnipeg, most of the crime incidents in Winnipeg are done by the same people. The same 100 or less people are creating 80% of the crime. And so much so that police officers are learning their first names. They know them on a first name basis because they see them so often, or arresting them so often. And imagine risking your life against someone who may be very violent, doing a violent act over and over again. Definitely is a burnout issue and a sensitivity issue because, again, you're putting your life at risk over and over. So I would say if we can, as elected officials, be leaders in supporting our police, and secondly, at the provincial and certainly federal government within their areas of jurisdiction, can tighten it up so that those that are creating the most of the mayhem are held accountable in our penitentiary system, that would offset a lot of these issues. I would conclude with this. In Vancouver, for example, 6,000 interactions with police in 1 year were done by 40 people. It's unbelievable. Like, why can't we deal with those 40 people in that regard? You know? So if we can do that, our police, and again, actually this will be the last thing I say for this, but we have serious drug rings in this city, in this country, that are international, that cause a lot of mayhem, as we know. We have human trafficking issues, we have human sex trafficking issues, we have a lot of the cannabis issues we talked about. There's much indications connected to crime and violent and drug crime organizations across the country. We also have national security concerns that our police are playing a role in, especially RCMP, whether we're talking cybersecurity, terrorism. There's a lot of heavy stuff we need our police officers to do to keep us safe. And if they're being tied up dealing with violent repeat offenders, they're not getting to the break and enter. That is not going to be an investigation or your auto theft. It's going to be on these people that are doing 6,000 crime incidents, 40 people sucking up all their time. So I would say we would do a better job on national security, we would do a better job on individual safety, and we would do a better job on police recruitment if we can tighten up our bail system, our parole system, and our conditional sentencing, and speak a bit more highly of our police officers. Those two things alone would solve significant issues in the public safety locally and nationally.
Thank you.
Anyone for any? Councilor Becker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thanks for your advocacy on public safety and helping regulate cannabis in the residential neighborhoods. I think that's fantastic. Good work. I want to switch to cell phone and telecommunications towers. And there's more of a need now to have cell phone and communication towers installed in the arm of West St. Paul. It's a growing community. But at the same time, we need to have a balanced approach, because right now there's nothing that really regulates where cell phone towers can be installed. So I feel that this council is going to be developing a policy in that regard. But maybe can you share with us your experiences of dealing with other municipalities and/or with the cell phone companies, and/or how does the consultation process work?
Thank you for the question. And certainly my office receives calls about cell phone towers or any real project that's going into a municipal area that can be perceived as disruptive or impact line of sight or smell when it comes to other cannabis issue, whether or it's a car wash. So we hear about those issues as well, not to the extent that you do, but I can certainly understand and appreciate the importance of achieving the balance that you've outlined. On cell phone towers, you outlined it quite well. Your community is growing, and that's a very good thing. And as long as you're growing at the pace that that your voters deem is appropriate, this is great news to see community value growing. That being said, that means you need more self-service. Bottom line, our whole worlds are on our cell phones now. You can work 100% remotely, and God forbid your internet goes down, but you have great data. You're good. And working during the pandemic, we've had great success with that, but you need proper cell phone access. In North Kelowna, for example, there's several blackout zones, and it's so odd to be in a major city, in an urban area, in a major suburb, where you can't get a cell phone signal. That's not right, it's not fair to those residents. But of course, the solution, as you know, is bringing in a very large cell phone tower, which isn't great in terms of some people's feelings about having that in their backyard, which you may have heard with one of them that's looking to come to West St. Paul. So we do understand that, and again, I think you mentioned the word balance is very important. We've heard some sort of different health concerns being raised. Again, whether that's an accurate portrayal of the impact of them or not, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, so I couldn't give you a professional assessment. What I would say is Health Canada does manage that and has been able to approve cell phones despite some of the radiation there for use, along with cell phone towers. But certainly if that needs another look, that's a federal area that needs to be re-examined, but from what I've seen, that's not the case. Though it is important, I think, to validate the concern that we have of those. Lastly, what I would say is it's important for residents not only to consider that we need better data as your cities grow and as your municipalities grow, so we need these cell phone towers, they benefit everyone, but it also is great for revenue for organizations that may be struggling. Whether that's a cemetery, whether that's a Legion, we have one at the Henderson Legion, or whether it's a Revolver Pistol Association. And I can certainly appreciate the revenue needs of various organizations, particularly given the economic challenges Canada faces right now. So I think you said it very well, balance is needed. What I would say, and what I have written to cell phone companies about, and I think is extremely important when it comes to these, because they are quite present, and once they're built, is we need to have very robust public consultations. So I'm happy to write letters of support for further public consultations. I think companies very often would, as you very well know, when developers come to town, they don't necessarily want to have public consultations, so it's on us to hold them accountable to do so. Cell phone companies can make a lot of money off that cell phone tower, and so the very least that they can do is ensure they're doing better consultation. And then sometimes we can see, as you know, maybe a slightly different location that no one thought of that works a little bit better. But if we're not pushing for those consultations, those alternative solutions are not found. So from my experience, it's difficult, as you know, on these zoning issues to make everybody happy, but I would encourage you to push the cell phone companies to deliver robust public consultations and be open to compromise while still delivering that cell phone coverage.
Thank you.
Councilor Blackwood.
I just have one comment that I'd like you to take back to the House, and that is the carbon tax is not working. The carbon tax is plunging people into more poverty. We have less and less disposable income because of this tax. We're seeing that this tax is affecting every area and every avenue of people's lives. As far as groceries being transported, we have to pay carbon tax on that. Clothing being transported into different cities, we have to pay tax on that. We have to pay tax at the pump. And so our Prime Minister is saying, you know, this is for your own good because it's for the environment. Well, I would say to the Minister, I'm sorry, but you know, a lot of people cannot afford the carbon tax. They have to drive a car with gasoline. They can't afford an electric car. We've seen in California where they had to shut down the power grid because they couldn't charge their vehicles, electrical vehicles. So the answer is not to get rid of all the gas-powered vehicles at this point. We have to keep it affordable for families because they're taking money from their food in order to put gas in their car so they can go to work. And I know the Prime Minister came up to our FCM and said, you know, we have poverty now and we don't have enough housing. Well, part of the problem is we're plunging people into poverty because we're taxing them to death. And it needs to stop. We need to reduce this carbon tax so that people have more disposable income. And with more disposable income, they can buy homes. We can build homes for them. He's calling for more homes. Well, people can't afford the homes because the interest rates are going up. So as long as those interest rates go up and they're being taxed to death, they can't afford the homes that he's asking us to build. So there has to be some consideration of reducing taxes for the people so that people have the income to do what they need to do for their families. And this is something that is across Canada right now. People are really struggling with making ends meet because of all the taxes this carbon tax that has been put on us. So, just a comment for you.
Okay, yes, we'll just I'll just ask you this one last question, make it short if you can. So we have this sewer project going on, and people are, I believe you have calls from your office. I don't know if you can just speak to that. Is there something that we as a municipality should be looking at, if there's any federal funding that we may not be aware of? I know we reach out to FCM to see if they can advocate for us on a proposal that we sent in to them. Is there anything else that we can do to help reduce to lower the cost of the project through funding?
Thank you, Mayor, very much for the question. I will respond to you as well, but I will first just address the wastewater issues since we have to agree about that as well. I've spoken to AMM as well, the Association of Municipalities, and of course the infrastructure across Canada. Much of it was built, as you well know, our treatment plants, our community centers, our highway infrastructure, hospitals, much of it was built during the baby boom in the mid-century. And so we really are getting to the end of the lifespan of a lot of these. And of course, our party under Pierre Poilievre's leadership, one of our major pillars is housing. We need to build housing faster, especially if we're going to have the very high immigration levels we're having and population growth and residents and international students coming in. We need more housing. How do you build more housing? As you will know, without proper wastewater treatment plants, without enough schools, hospitals, all these things. And so, of course, there's federal envelopes, as you know, a number of them, for example, and again, every federal government, again, as you know, has puts a different stamp, brings forward a different program, has different policy requirements. But currently, there's some programs like the Canada Community Building Fund, Clean Water and Wastewater Treatment Fund. Pardon me, a lot of those windows that we have found took a lot of time to get going with Liberals. And they had moving goalposts in terms of environment regulation, as well as density requirements, which can work, as you very well know, very well in some cities. But places like West St. Paul, I have found that people want yards. Sometimes you want big yards. East St. Paul, same thing. When you get around in the Winnipeg, outside the Winnipeg perimeter, people move there because they want larger yards. So what I consistently hear from folks at the provincial and federal approval areas, oh, they want very tight density. But that's not always an approach that a municipality wants to take, as you well know. It might not suit the character or the neighborhood. And so, as you know, that's going to put a lot of strain when you're trying to apply for funding. So what I would say is those are some of the feedback I've heard when I've reached out to your provincial and, of course, dealing with the federal Liberals. These are some of the, what should we call them? These are some of the responses I've received, we'll say, of why certain municipalities are having trouble getting some federal funding. But I would say under the Harper government, they were very effective at rolling out infrastructure dollars. It was one of the reasons Canada fared so well following the 2008-2009 recession. We had significantly less red tape when it came to getting things built, getting shovels in the ground. The federal Liberals have been notoriously slow on getting things built. They are spending money more than any other government in history. In fact, more in deficit dollars than every government before them combined at the federal level, which is quite extraordinary, given the country is 150-some years old. But actually delivering on completed projects has been very challenging for them. And so conservatives, we have a bit of a different approach. We look to cut regulation and get things happening. And Pierre Poilievre is going to be looking to municipalities to remove some of those red tape barriers to be eligible for things like the gas tax. So just to let you know, that'll be on the radar, on your radar for sure. Should we have a Pierre Poilievre government? He wants to be helping to facilitate, encouraging both Tarrant and Stick, all municipalities across the country, to get housing built. But as my experience has led me to understand, sometimes a municipality like yours that's frankly been very successful at improving housing developments, from what I've seen, you are limited by your own infrastructure. So that's where folks like myself, who have to be strong local representatives in Ottawa, that's where that voice would come in, whether it's just in caucus generally, whether I would be honored with a cabinet position or the like, whatever that may look like. Your federal MP, certainly when you're in government, has a role to play to ensure that, in this regard, the needs of municipalities to expand their wastewater treatment plants, if we're going to meet our housing goals, is first and foremost. You can't build houses unless you have this, that's the bottom line. So my commitment on this would be that you have a very strong voice in a conservative government advocating for proper wastewater treatment plants within Winnipeg, East St. Paul, and West St. Paul. And from the experience I've had, both working for the provincial government and now being a federal MP, it seems that the squeaky wheel really does hit the grease, and thankfully, Manitoba has a very strong federal conservative caucus in Ottawa, and we can have success when we punch above our weight, speak very loudly, and I have had success in that regard, for better or worse, depending on who you ask, whether you're liberal or not. But that's certainly my commitment to West St. Paul residents, is to speak very loudly for them in that regard, so we can get this done, and offset hopefully some of these costs that residents are having to experience. And then just to conclude on the carbon tax, I would very much agree. Pierre Poilievre has been very steadfast for a number of years of cutting the carbon tax, eliminating it altogether for the reasons that you accurately outlined. I'm hearing this as well. There's been a cost of living issues. It's been expensive to live in Canada for a while, but it is quite obscene in this regard. I think we see the most extreme manifestations of that with the homeless and addiction issues that we're seeing really explode in our cities. That's the very clearest manifestation that something's gone horribly wrong. Some of it is pandemic hangover, so to speak, but a lot of it is because anyone who's on the verge of poverty seems to have been thrust into that poverty. And often people deal with that with substance abuse, as we know. So immediate relief needs to happen, and that's not going to be, in our estimation, what the Liberals have done, which is a $500 so-called grocery rebate. That's not going to solve the thousands of extra dollars people are paying in gas, groceries, basic goods, transport, and we can go on. That's not going to be a long-term solution. We need to cut taxes. We need to cut regulation to ensure that our goods and services are being delivered at a competitive cost. We've had 8 years of excess, more spending than ever in history, and yet life has never been more expensive. So clearly the approach, and again, I'm quite partisan on this, clearly the Liberal approach federally has not been working, and in our estimation has contributed quite strongly to the cost of living crisis we've seen. It is the number one issue that we talk about, is the number one issue that Pierre Poilievre talks about, and it would be the number one pillar for us to get that under control, to say nothing of the fact that we are having very serious economic growth concerns, that, we're Canadians and generally everyone is very focused on their day-to-day micro-level expenses. What we are seeing is a trend that quite literally, for the first time since the onset of Canada, the next generation will not be as well off as the one before them. That's never happened before. Whether we're talking about housing, or how far a dollar goes, or job opportunities. Now, you hear a very different story from the Liberals, but those are the raw economic indicators. Those are just the facts, and nobody likes to read them. And the mainstream media has very much been reporting on this of late. Pierre Poilievre has been talking about this for years. So we need a serious change of approach at the federal level to ensure we're seeing economic growth. And I believe, I'll just conclude, that the big spend, big government solutions that have been sold to Canadians in the last 8 years have failed and made matters worse and put on this trajectory. It's going to be very, very difficult for us to make a better world for our children. So not to end on a negative note, but just to say it is difficult to get those phone calls from your constituents who've done everything right. They're educated, they work hard, they have their families, they have stability, all the things that we're always told to Canadians they need to do to ensure stability and a proper retirement is not enough anymore. And the Canadian dream should be available to everyone if they're going to work hard, and that doesn't seem to be the case right now. there certainly is less becoming the case. So just to conclude, and again, thank you for having me today, it's been great. The Pierre Poilievre Conservative Majority Government, our first priority would be rectifying these issues to ensure we're put back on the right economic track for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate your visit and your comments and your insights.
Thank you.
We'll be talking to you again in the future.
Yes,
Kiss.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully I can deliver good statistics next time.
Yes,
That'd be my
good.
goal. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So next on the agenda is, we're in our internal communications. We're down to 4.3, Infrastructure Committee. We have Municipal Road, Municipal Provincial Road Servicing Agreement, and we have our Director of Infrastructure here, Dave Romanoff. So we'll start off with 4.3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to follow up to comments that Councillor Factican had raised regarding potential municipal provincial service agreements for maintaining provincial roads within our municipality. I've reached out twice to the coordinator from Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure in regards to a potential agreement. They do have structure in place for gravel road maintenance agreements. This, however, the asks that were raised about Northumberland and other roads would not fall under gravel contracts. So we're looking at how we can do that. I haven't had a meeting with them, so I'm going to continue advocating for West St. Paul, and I'll bring an update to council when I have. Okay.
Good, Councilor Paxton.
Yeah, thanks for that update, Ms. Shaw. Would it be possible, I'm wondering if the Manitoba Infrastructure and or their representatives could come as a delegation to maybe speak a little bit more about that maybe, and you know, I'm glad to hear that they have a gravel road policy service agreement with municipalities in the province, but just wanting to know what perhaps are the barriers to other roads, to paved roads.
Okay. I'll reach out and see if I can organize a meeting.
Yeah, if they could come to our next CLW meeting in September, that'd be great. Thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions? Okay, so now we're down to 4.32. Mr. Romanoff, pavement repair tenders.
Okay.
We have some, I guess, we're looking for an update of where we are with it. And,
For the pavement 2023 project status as of August the 8th, the Riverdale concrete restoration, all concrete repairs are completed. Restoration is complete, cleanup is complete at Riverdale. With regards to Lister Rapids, all concrete repairs are complete, restoration complete, and cleanup as well is completed. Regarding the area of Magalus, Rimmer, Auckland, and Hurdy, the contractor Maple Leaf will be mobilizing and start shaping the base on August the 9th, which is this week. And upon completion of the shaping in that, asphalt will be immediately laid and complete on the Magalus, Rimmer, Auckland, and Hurdy area. The Moore, Addis, Ponida off Grassmere area, we'll be constructing on one side of the road only at a time to provide access in that area, and then commence excavation after the shaping is complete on Rimmer and Magalus. And based on the construction preparation for asphalt during and after the excavation, then asphalt will immediately be applied after the base is complete. With respect to the Dearman area, again, construct on one side of the road only at one time, at the time to provide access. Commence excavation after shaping is complete on the Rimmer Road and Magalus area. Base construction in preparation for asphalt during and after excavation, and then asphalt immediately after the base work is done. Then the next one will be the Rossmore area. Again, we'll be constructing on one side of the road only at time to provide access. Commence excavation after shaping is complete, and then base construction preparation for asphalt during and after excavation, then asphalt immediately after base work is complete. Then finally, we'll be doing the asphalt spot repairs at the locations that are required. The anticipated estimated completion date for the entire project was going to be around September the 22nd in that area is what Maple Leaf has estimated for the entire pavement project for this year. And of course, this is subject to weather permitting, so if we have some bad weather, you know, it may affect a day or two or delay it. Like we were going to be on Maglis today, but unfortunately the rain, so Maple Leaf had to defer that till tomorrow. So, you know, that's subject to. With respect to our budget, we are within our financial plan and approved budget based on all the estimated quantities and that Mayor and Council has approved for the $2,020,000 budget.
Councilor Clyburn?
So, if you could educate me a little bit, when we talk about shaping, one of the concerns I heard from Magalis was that the ditches are not draining properly. And I was told that when we were gonna pave the road, that would be addressed. Will that be addressed now?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's part of the shaping?
Well, the shaping is the road. Basically, what you have, they call it a crossfall. So you're in the middle of the road, it's a little higher. And
Yeah.
it slopes one way and slopes the other way, so the drainage goes to the ditches.
Right.
That's the shaping of the roads. And then what we do have in here is we have some ditching, re-ditching, and elevations we shot for that area as well.
Okay, great, thank you. They were concerned about that.
Councilor Campbell.
Is Rossmore gonna get any wider, or we have to keep it the same width?
Have to keep it the same.
Okay. And then one other question. I had a lady who, I guess her culvert was replaced on Matic last year, and she had asphalt before, but I guess by the time we did the culvert or whatever, we'd already done.
Yeah, that's in our spot spot repairs.
Okay.
That's done usually at the end.
Okay, it was I think she was like 83, really
Yeah.
nice lady, but I just wanted to make sure that was on
Yeah.
the list.
Yeah, we have some spot repairs in Lister Rapids too, or replace some culverts too. That'll be done again under the spot repair project.
Okay, thanks.
Councilor Paxton.
Yeah, thanks for the update, Mr. Romano. Just some really quick questions for you with regards to Dearman, Northumberland, and Jackman. The entrance and exits to these streets here. So the one on Dearman, I understand that the right-of-way is provincial property and that we're not going to be doing that, but the condition of the road, you know, that condition of the entrance isn't that great. So I'm wondering how that's gonna, like, how is the RM gonna respond to that in terms of doing the paving of Dearman, which is gonna look great, but then the entrance and exit's gonna look horrible?
Well,
And then with regards to both Northumberland and Jackman, I know that there was a curb cut, or pardon me, there was a cut in the road to install a culvert last year for those two roads. And is the entrance and exit to those roads gonna be done as well, like in terms of paving?
Well, for example, for Dearman, we're going to be spending approximately $300,000 plus on Dearman. So it's a total reconstruction of that. The RM has taken the position with MTI that, you know, their right-of-way, we can go up to their right-of-way. And typically that's what we do on any connections to the MTI right-of-ways and that. We have done in the past where if we have to do some spot repairs, we'll encroach on that a bit to do some spot repairs. And we're going to try and do some of those spot repairs as well.
Okay, so it sounds like essentially, although Dearman, I'm happy that Dearman's gonna get done. The entrance to Dearman isn't gonna get done, perhaps spot repairs, but it's not gonna look as good as
Yeah, the entrance will be done,
it will be done?
yeah?
Okay. And then with regards, can you comment on Northumberland and Jackman for me as well? Because I know that,
We'll be doing some spot repairs on that as well.
so the completed product's gonna look like what?
Well, based on our unit price contract, we have certain quantities we have to comply with to meet with our financial budget. And what we'll do is we'll see how our quantities tie into that and see if we can do some additional spot repairs when we're doing that work in those areas. And if we're limited to that, then what we'd have to do then is come back to council to see if we could spend a little bit more money on the spot repairs. But I can't say right now because it's a unit price contract. We measured this all up, and based on our original tender documents, we're following those unit numbers. Okay.
Anyone else? Can you, you're talking about Maglis, do you know what the time frame is for it to get completed?
Yeah, on,
Maglis Rimmer, Purdy,
Let's see here.
is it a week, 2 weeks?
Maglis should be done within approximately 2 weeks.
Okay, good, thank you. Any other questions?
The entire project will be done, as I said, around September 22nd.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much for your information. Appreciate you for coming down to talk to us, to share us that information. It's nice seeing you again.
Thank you.
Nice to have you in the meetings with us. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
So next on the agenda is our financial statement for the period ending June 30th. Has anyone, do you want to speak to it, please?
Yes, so I'm here today to present our semi-annual statements. As you can see, most of the numbers are roughly around the 50-60% mark, which is good. We do have some that we do have a little bit higher of a variance that is due to majority of those projects being completed basically starting July to September, and majority of the expenses coming through during the summer months. Expense-wise, so revenue-wise, I don't see us being under budget. I don't see us being over budget. I will know more come September, as we are waiting on assessment to complete our information for added taxes. So those supplementary bills will be going out by mid-September. So I don't have a value for that right now, so I can't speak on that. But all the other revenue items are as expected. Expenses are the same as expected. I currently do not foresee anything going over what was originally budgeted. We may have a slight surplus for wages, and that is due to some movement within a couple of departments, staff leaving and whatnot. So we did budget for those employees to be here for the full year. Unfortunately, they're no longer with us, so we'll have a little bit of funds budgeted there that will not be spent. For the utilities, I have no going concern at this point in time. It's nice to see that we do have some surpluses within the utilities. Now, those are based on, revenues are always based on consumption. So there's no changing that. We cannot budget less revenues. Any surplus, and expenses are based on what we need to operate the utilities. So any surpluses within the utility go directly into a reserve, and that is to offset future repairs and maintenance of the lines and pump houses and whatnot required to operate those utility systems. Are there any questions regarding the June financials?
Councilman Clyburn?
Okay, just a couple of questions and clarifications. I'm sure you have the answers, so I'm sure I'm not asking anything too onerous. I understand about the supplemental taxes. That's not a problem. The user fees are significantly lower than we thought. So sales of services, development, and dedication fees.
Yes.
So is that, what is that from? Is that from?
Those are from capital development fees, and they're directly offset by an expense.
Okay.
So this will, that item will not affect our surplus in the end. So
Okay.
it's automatically transferred to reserves. It's for capital development, green space, it's whatever we collect on.
So we're significantly down because there's just not a lot of subdividing.
Right, it's very slow this year.
Yeah.
Also, you'll see sales and service, it's very slow with permitting as well, and that's where we generate the revenues there. There will be more revenues coming in later this year. There's also the rec revenues that are all combined in sales and service. That's for social rentals, programming, which there's the summer camp currently still on, and this is only till June, right? So we don't have the summer camp in here for July and August, which is a big revenue maker as well throughout the summer months for recreation.
That would be offset by wages though as well, right?
Right, so you'll see further in, like if you flip to, let's see here, page.
I'm more concerned about the transfers coming in, so.
Yeah, so the conditional transfers, so the federal, the 315, that is the federal gas tax. We have not received it yet.
Okay.
So once we receive the funds, it will be recorded. If we don't receive the full payment by the end of the year, we do record the full amount as a revenue and record a receivable on our books.
So our gas tax should be around $30,000, is that what?
No, it's the 315. So the 30,000
Okay.
you're looking at, that is related to our summer camp, Canada
Okay.
Summer Jobs.
Okay,
So that offsets our student wages
so
for
the
that.
315 federal under the unconditional government transfers, okay.
Yes, so that is expected to come.
Okay.
Any other,
The provincial one is a lot lower this year than last year, or than our budgeted, why is that?
so the provincial is grants that we apply for that we
Okay.
don't know we're getting until after budget's been set, right? So majority of our grants that we do apply for are through the province. And we receipt them as they come in, and then they just offset the expenses for the projects. So some cases we apply for grants relating to projects that come out of reserves. In that regard, we just pull less from the reserve for that year. So then we have that extra to use for future projects in future years.
Okay, so we budgeted for 785, that was the expectation, or that's what we applied for?
For the provincial unconditional transfers?
Yeah,
Yes, so those are coming in.
okay,
That is part of, just give me 2 seconds. So we have our municipal operating grant. We've only received a portion of it so far this year. We've
Okay.
received approximately $330,000, and we're expecting about $785,000.
then I look down to miscellaneous revenue, and you've got a big differential there with 736.
Yeah.
What was
So
that?
we invoiced the developer for the Eames Road lights
Okay,
at McPhillips and Eames.
yeah,
Their portion, so that's why you'll see a large difference in there, but it will offset our expenses under, let me just get the exact title for you. It is on page 4, under contribution to capital. You'll see there's $655,000 expensed there. So that, the 675 will offset that expense as well as grant funds that we receive from the province again.
Okay.
It's just slightly over $1 million. This project is not complete. There's still a large number of invoicing that has to come through for that.
that's good to know, because sometimes people look at this kind of a statement and they say, well, what happened to that $736,000? So at least we know that it's basically an in and out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an in and out to cover a project that the RM's not 100% responsible for, right? It's
Great.
been cost shared.
Good, thank you for your explanations.
Anyone else have any questions? Why don't you just give me a bit of an education? So I'm going to use the example of the unconditional grant. You got $330,000. You mentioned it was going to be offset with an expense.
Not the unconditional grant,
Okay,
no.
which one was it?
We're talking the conditional grant, the federal portion, that 30,000 offsets our summer camp students' wages. Same with the provincial. Those are grants that we apply for projects that have been approved through budget. Those expenses offset, or those revenues offset those expenses as well. So it's an in and an out. It doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. Normally, I'm gonna say 90% of the projects that we apply for grant funding is paid through reserves. So we're just saving those funds to use for future projects in those reserves. It's nothing that we've milled for. It didn't affect the mill rate at tax time during budget deliberations.
It's a pass-through.
Yeah.
It's basically coming in and it's going right back out.
No, I understand that. I guess,
So
what would happen if we say we don't want it to go into reserves?
You don't want to what?
it's already in reserves. The funds are already in the reserve. It offsets the project that we've budgeted to come out of a reserve. So I do not pull those funds out of the reserve. So say I budgeted $20,000 for a play structure, just for example. We get $10,000 of grant funding. So therefore I only remove $10,000 out of that reserve to offset that park play structure. These grant funds are not to be spent as we feel. They are linked to a specific project. So we have to apply those funds to that specific project.
So the student loan,
The summer camp,
that is a,
it is, yeah, it's earmarked. The grant funds that we will receive are earmarked for those summer camp wages. We have to report to the feds what we've paid in wages, how many students worked, how many hours, and then they issue us our funding at the end of the term. So that'll be coming about mid-September.
so the student fund, that was part of the budget plan, wasn't it?
There's a portion, yes, and then we leave a little bit in there to be covered by grant funding. We don't budget 100% of the student wages.
Oh, you're not budgeting 100%?
No.
Okay. The,
If there is a difference, it's honestly maybe 5,000 between what the grant funds and what's budgeted.
okay. So dollar-wise, what do you think we'll have left over after expenses?
I can't say at this point in time. It's way too early in the year. Like I said, we're just ramping up now come July, August, with the majority of our expenses coming in. Our projects are starting. We had our pavement repairs, that's starting just now. The majority of expenses that happen throughout the year are wages, garbage pickup, those are spread through 12 months, right? Phone, utilities. Any of the other items, so any park items that are done, trails, that's all done throughout the summer months. We can't do it during the winter.
Okay. So really, we have no idea if we're gonna be over budget.
We will not be over budget. I can tell you that. We will not be over budget
And how do you know that?
based on where the expenses are today.
So we know that everything that municipality has done to this point
Mhm.
is under budget.
Yeah.
And we don't anticipate anything going over budget.
Right.
But should some unforeseen circumstance arise, we would bring it to your attention because we'd need your approval to expend funds outside of approved budget.
Right. So come the September quarter statements, that's where I'll have a better idea as to where we're going to be at the end of the year. Based on what I'm presenting today, we're in a good position. Like I said previously, if we look in the expenses, our variance ranges from 46% all the way up to, there's 197%, but I see the majority of them within 55 to 67% remaining to be spent.
Would you say it's fair that we're looking at a 12-month period and we're at the 6-month mark? So if you would take those expenses and
Right, so you
double
should be
them,
roughly about the
that would be
50%
what it
mark.
would
And
be.
now we're a little higher of a variance there, so
Right.
we have more that we can spend. We have more wiggle room on the expenses as of June, and same with the revenues, right?
Yeah. And then you still haven't got your supplemental, so.
Right, and I don't know what
Yeah.
that'll be. They send it to us end of August, and we have basically a week to prepare potentially 300 supplementary bills.
So it looks to me like from what I see here on your variances and your actual versus budget, you're even under you're even under like 50% of the budget. Some of them
Yeah,
are
yeah,
like 45%.
Yeah, majority of them are under
Some of
the
them
yeah.
are way under, yeah.
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 So we still have about 60, I'd say 60 to 65% to spend
Mhm.
in expenses.
Yeah.
So in protective services, you have 74%. So I guess, is there something missing in protective services?
So protective services is our fire department. Their wages are dependent on how many calls they get. It is not the easiest thing to budget for. You can budget based on prior years, but if it's a good year where there's minimal calls, where they have to attend to, knock on wood, fires, accidents out there, you'll see less wages.
Yeah.
Right, but you need to budget an amount in there to cover that in the event of it being a bad year.
That's fair enough. Yep.
Okay. So I have a question also on utilities. I guess I'm having trouble reconciling, I guess first of all, payroll, when you do your payroll for utilities,
Mhm.
what's included in that? What's included in that payroll number?
Which payroll number are you speaking
The one
about?
that we approve every month when you bring it
That
forward.
that would include the gross pay that is paid to all employees,
Just gross pay?
gross pay.
What about benefits, taxable benefits?
Benefits aren't paid to employees, benefits are paid on behalf of the employee by the RM. You're just approving gross pay that people are taking home. I mean, we get net pay, but what the RM is paying for all the employees to work. So that is what's on your payroll report,
Mhm.
is the gross wages that were paid.
Okay.
So what Crystal does is she actually job costs each employee.
No,
So that's why it goes into these different areas, is when she's taking in those employees, she then job costs to those particular areas. So the wages and benefits are split out into the areas.
I guess where I have questions on is, like utilities, for March, you had $15,000 as the gross pay. And you had $17,000 in April, and you had $16,000 in May as your gross pay. But if I take a look at the numbers for utilities, where am I? The
But
number-
she might not be job costing the utilities there, she might be job costing to wages and benefits under environmental development services, correct?
The majority of the utility, like the utility staff,
Mhm.
is split between multiple areas. We
There you
have
go.
3 utilities. They also work within our public works area doing driveway inspections, which is linked to utility because they have to ensure that the water shutoff is visible, and if it's in the middle of the driveway, which some of them are, that it will be accessible. They do testing, sometimes they do testing here, they maintain our utility water system. We have any issues here, they come, if there's any issues with the fire department, they look at after that as well. They're also responsible for our generators, so we have the 2 generator stations, we have one here and we have one at our rec site. So they maintain those, ensure that they're operating.
So where, they
Efficiently.
would be in every area of this,
Yeah, the utilities is spread throughout,
Spread out,
like it's
yeah. It
a
wouldn't be
little
into
bit
one
here, a
area.
little bit in this department, a little bit in that department. Majority is sewer, water, and River's Edge.
So, Mayor, if you wanted to know how much utility wages you paid out to date, you would have to ask for that figure separately.
Do we have that figure separate?
No, you don't. You have wages that she's job costed throughout all the different areas that they've applied to. So it's like if Mike works for me and he works on 3 different jobs, his wages get costed out into 3 different jobs.
No, I understand that. But
So-
I guess when I take a look at the utilities, the utility staff, they're responsible for the utilities at River's Edge, the sewer system, and the water system. That's what they're responsible for.
Right, and then there's also the water system at a rec site that they're responsible for. They have to do water testing, so they're there anywhere from half an hour to an hour every day.
But the rec site doesn't have a utility budget though.
They do. Yes, they do. In
Doesn't
our.
show up on here.
No, it's not going to show up in there. We don't do line by line detailed reporting for that purpose. The utility portion would show up in your, in your recreation wages and benefits. So they'd be included under wages and benefits for all staff that work out of the rec site.
So what are you including under the utilities? Or for the utilities line, is that the
So
utilities
The
they're using?
utilities, yeah, the utilities is your hydro, gas.
Right, that's what I thought.
And your water and sewer, so we bill out our departments for their usage,
Mm-hmm.
through the utility, system.
So when we see utilities, what we're seeing is, what is your hydro at this building? What is the hydro over at the protective services
Right,
building?
yeah, and includes
That's
like phone
what we're looking at.
services, their sewer and water usage, yeah.
Okay, so, they get the utility rate for all this stuff.
Pardon?
They get the utility rate for looking after the
The
hydro.
the utility
rate.
staff receive their pay rate, yes, for all utility-related work. So if they are at the fire hall checking the meter, checking the generator, they receive their utility rate. If they're here checking our meter, they receive their utility rate. If they're at the rec site, doing the water testing, checking, to ensure the system is working and functioning properly there, they get their utility rate.
So what special skills do you need to check a generator?
Pardon?
What special skills do you need to check a generator?
To check the generator, they
Yeah,
have to
you said-
ensure that it runs, so I'm not sure how exactly they do it, but they do come here once a week on, I believe, a Monday morning, and they
They start it up.
start up the generator to ensure that it's going to start up and run this building and next door, so
I
that
just-
we maintain, function during a power outage.
Can we keep it to the financial statements though, because now we're going off track, we're asking.
No. not
Yeah,
that.
you are, you're going off track, you're asking about what certification they need for these different functions. We're just looking at the financial statement at this point.
Well, it is, but it is part of the financial statement, and if I see if I go just with strictly with the utilities, because these individuals that we have here, they have, class 1 water distribution system, the wastewater system, so that's what they're getting paid for, that's where there's a skill on. When you start up a generator, you're just starting up a generator to see if it works, it's no different than starting up a tractor.
Yeah, but that's
what I'm
something
asking
we
is-
should discuss at a
So,
separate issue.
Well, I guess the point is that are they doing work that can be done by PW by getting utility rates for it? That's what I'm.
But you can't see that here, because it's all one lump sum.
No, I
The-
understand.
The answer would, the short answer is no, and it would also be appropriate to discuss in camera.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
One of-
also to elaborate on your amount that you're looking at, that also includes our utility clerk. So there would be 3 employees within there.
where in the utility labor? Or
Under your
Oh,
payroll.
But you have the utility clerk is under payroll?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
But again,
No,
Ms. Schwada, that would not be seen on the statement.
So it would
The
be. it wouldn't-
utilities is the actual utilities of the building.
Yeah, so I don't know what line item exactly you're speaking of. If you're speaking of the utilities line item that is showing on our general operating fund on, page, what is it here, 3 and 4, those are strictly utilities, hydro, gas, water, sewer, expenses, phone, those type utilities. Now, if you're talking about wages and benefits, if they're performing work under the general operating fund departments, they're under wages and benefits. If they are under the utility departments, they are again under wages and benefits or salaries and benefits listed on the line items on the utility statements.
yeah, no, I see that. The utilities, we're scheduled, we have a budget for 166,000 and we're already at 42,000. So we got 88,000 coming up for the rest of the year.
Which
What are you
line,
talking
where are
about?
you looking?
Yeah.
Well, if I add up all of,
Okay, yeah, if you're adding them up, I can't say yes or no. They're all split by department.
no, I know, but if you add up the,
Like, we operate on a department basis, so we don't combine everything as one line item. This is your utilities for the RM. This is utilities for administration, this is your utilities for fire, this is your utilities for public works.
I'm strictly speaking water and sewer, that's what I'm speaking of.
Okay, so,
So if you add up all of the salaries that, supply operator, wastewater treatment operator, treatment plant operator, meter reading, it's coming to 166,000. That's what was budgeted for the year. So far, we are at 42,000 according to the financial statements that you have.
No.
okay,
I
again,
don't know
they're
where you're
split,
looking.
your sewer is your sewer, your water is your water.
I understand
Your
that.
river's edge is your river's edge,
I understand
right?
that. I understand that.
I
understand that, okay? It's just that when you add up all of those benefits, all those wages,
mm-hmm,
it comes to 166,000,
okay.
right? That was the budget.
Where are
That
you
means
getting the-
halfway through, we have 83,000. And if I look at and add up all those utilities from those three categories, you're at 40, year-to-date on June, you're 46,500. So out of 166,000, you're at you got a third of you only got a third done. So you're gonna have, if I see this right, you're gonna have $40,000 in surplus in wages alone here, in utilities.
The,
Right, so if I may, you'll also recall that in budget, you have approved an additional utility person
Mhm.
who is not yet on staff. So that is going to increase the costs there.
yes.
In a more, it's not just going to double now from August to December. When you add another staff, there's extra expense there, okay?
Yeah, I understand, but I just see where we are. That's all. I'm just telling you where I see where we are. So.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, like Lainey said, once the new employee is hired and on staff, you'll see a jump in those expenses.
Are we hiring a new utility person, or I thought we were only
I'm-
replacing?
I thought you put a pause on it.
We're hiring one utility staff, and we can speak about this staff,
Yeah.
staff retention and that in camera.
Yeah, we need to do this in
But in the
camera.
budget, you've approved an additional utility staff member. We have yet to post that position, but it will happen this year.
I thought we were only filling the two that were vacant.
No,
That's what you were telling me.
No, that's not what I told you.
Can we
So-
discuss this in camera?
If we're talking numbers here, there were the two full-time and one person budgeted for 6 months out of the year. Now that will budget started July 1st for this potential new. That being said, that if I budgeted that, it doesn't affect the revenues that we're going to take in for these utilities. The fees are set by our fees and charges based on the Public Utilities Board, who have approved those fees.
Yeah.
We cannot reduce them unless we do a rate study, or most likely increase. Utility rates, once they're set for 5 years, they're set for 5 years, and whatever your agreement ends in, so if it ended in 2021, your 2021 rates continue going on until you complete a new rate study.
Okay.
And I believe that we did do one at Cartier Water. We did an increase.
Oh, you guys did at Cartier?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're looking at doing 3 rate studies this year. I'm just waiting for our 2022 audit to come back to us. We're this close. It's, I'm gonna say within the next couple of weeks, we should have all the papers back. Due to summer, nobody's ever around. But once that's done, I can start on a rate study for the 3 utilities and potentially adjust the rates depending on what the PUB says.
Okay, I have one more question.
Go ahead.
So I'm wondering if we finished at the PW building now, as far as construction is concerned?
I believe they're just wrapping it up. I don't have all the expenses just yet.
Well, we do get all the expenses in. Can you give us a job cost on that
Yep.
project? What we budgeted and what we came in at?
Yeah, I can do a
Just
report
provide
for
us with-
that. Yeah, for sure.
Provide us with a report? I'd really appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah, I can, I have everything tracked, so it's very
Yeah.
easy for me to draft a report for any project that we have on the go.
Good, thank you. That'd be great.
Okay, so next is, any other questions? No, none?
No.
Okay. So now we're down to 4.2 on municipal tendering policy. So we're looking at basically seeing if we need to make any changes on it. From my perspective, I think we do need to make some changes on it. There are some things that I think that are being, I guess I have some concerns with that I see happening with it. And I guess if we can, and I think that we should probably just start off with, do you have that in here? So you have, basically what we have here is the municipality has, the provincial government has a template for the tendering policy. My suggestion is that we take this template and we go through it and we see if this is something that we want or if there's something that is missing and compare it to what we already have. And that is already on the computer on your agenda. So if we start off from go ahead, Councilor.
So are we gonna go through this, you want changes right now, as we're going through this, or?
Yes. What were you thinking? Like, we had the information sent out?
Well, I'd like to know what kind of changes, I guess, we're, like, how far are we going into changing stuff in here? It's, looking at the comparison that we have on here, sorry, I'm going back to that one. See, it doesn't come up good. I don't have my printed copy here, but just the comparison that we did get from administration, like, there are some that are a little over, but there's also quite a few more that are under already what we're doing. So I just don't know at what extreme we're going into changes on.
I don't know if it's, I don't know if I see an extreme, I just see that there probably has to be some tweaks in the procurement policy that we have. And I guess, go ahead, Councilor Campbell.
Well, I'm just, like, I would like to know what changes first, like, cause you know, if there's big red flags, I would like to know about them first and sort of, digest that instead of going through this thing line by line, right? Like, I'm just wondering where it's coming from, right? Like, what's the big red flags? What have you seen or what have you been hearing that people are concerned about?
I guess the one thing is, the things that I have seen on this way that we do procurement here is that we had I don't know, a $10,000, 10 or 12,000, no, forget the number. It was well over, and I questioned about what it was, and they said it was sole source.
It was what?
The reason that it never
Sole
came to
sourced.
council was because it was sole sourced. It was a bill that we had earlier in the year. It was, I think it was $18,000. It was sole source. And I saw the name of the company and I thought, okay, I went on the internet and I typed in the information I had, and lo and behold, another company comes up that could have done the job, as far as I can see. So then I asked how come they didn't go by it, and I was told that it was sole sourced. Well, what applies to sole source? So when you have a sole source, you don't have to do any tenders. You don't have to do any quotes.
Well, I
What determines that?
That concerns me too, I think, because if you've asked for 3 quotations and you only get one, you could actually ask somebody to quote on it. But sole source basically means it's, should be a specialty that only one person can do, or it's only very available through one person in Manitoba or whatever, right? It's gotta be like really high up their specialty. Because there's so many companies out there competing right now, you should very rarely use a sole source.
Yes, that's what I thought. So that's what I was wondering, what determines the sole source? Because obviously, this one incident, so I think we have to look at that. The other thing that I see is that whenever I sign a check, there is a PO and there's an invoice. And I look at it and I think, there's no proof of work being done. There's no indication that there was a job order done. There's no indication that we received the materials. There's no indication that we actually purchased it. And if there was a proof of delivery, it's not even signed. So someone can come along and say that they ordered 10 individual items. They didn't ship 5, they forgot to ship 5, the invoice comes, and then it gets paid. Because the PO said 10.
Yeah, so the way that we do it in our company is we issue a PO.
Yeah,
It's this, and whoever issues the PO must assign it to a job, which would be probably something you would do. When the invoice comes in, I enter it and I send it down to the person that ordered it. They have to match it to their PO book and they have to sign off that it was received and that the price is what they were quoted. And that's probably what should be happening here.
Yes, so.
But they should initial off.
they
Everything
do,
should be initialed off.
but there's no record that it was ever received. You could receive a trailer load of iron, Thursday, Councilor Iron.
Yeah.
There could be 10 pieces of iron on there, and no one acknowledges that you received 10 pieces. You assume you got 10 pieces because the invoice says 10 pieces.
Well, there should be a bill of lading. When that comes, that bill of lading should be signed off.
And that is receiving document.
Yeah.
But I don't see any,
Oh, okay.
right? There isn't any. There is no proof that anything was signed, and it's really, to me, it should be an independent individual that receives it. It shouldn't be the individual that's on the PO.
Well, it should be your shipper receiver. So
Yes, I
whoever
know.
your shipper receiver is at Public Works or at Fire Department or whoever's receiving it, should be the receiver that signs off on it.
Right. So-
And then it goes into
So how
inventory.
it works with a small team is whoever's going to receive it is the person who's in the building. So,
Yeah.
you know, if we receive something here, sometimes that's our receptionist. If she's away or on break, that will be another staff member.
But there would be a bill of lading.
If there's a bill of lading, then we accept that, okay? And same with our other departments, so whoever's present, we don't have a position of shipper receiver. That's not how the operations of the municipality
Well,
work.
we do the same thing, but there is some kind of bill of lading. It's like when you order something, comes in a box and you've got a bill in there. And
Yeah.
you circle that you received,
Yes,
then it goes up to accounting.
yes, we would include that if if there's some kind of delivery, you know, office supplies or something, that would be part of the package with the PO and the invoice.
Like, we can get staff to include them if that is the will of council. We do get them. We do sign off on them, and we file them within our office documents.
So this seems like it's something that's just a misunderstanding or something that was never asked.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we've never been asked to see the bill of lading. We trust our staff that they are receiving the products and the POs are signed off on based on what was actually received. If you do notice, sometimes there are adjustments on a PO to state that, you know, we only got 2 items, or the invoice will state that we received 5 and 5 are on back order.
Right.
And then you'll see another invoice come later, a week later or so, for the other 5 with the same PO attached. Not the same, it's a copy of the same PO that was attached with the original invoice. But if that's the will of council, I can request from all department heads to submit their packing slips and bills of lading to be signed, and signed off on.
Is your invoicing at 30?
A lot of it, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you still got the 30 days if there's a back order.
right,
You can wait for it to come in.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and we do that here in the office for our office supplies. If there is an item on back order, or we haven't received it, we hold the invoice before we issue payment.
Yep.
Can I ask a question?
So, go on.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the earlier comment the mayor was talking about the sole source purchase, is there a justification that goes with the sole source? Because normally it's done on an urgent basis or it's emergency, is there?
Yeah, so if it's an emergency and the case that you're speaking of is the lift station pump that went, my understanding is there is only one company that supplies that specific item that works within our lift station. So the lift stations are built a certain way to run a certain product, right? That's just how they were built, and in the emergency situation, we were down to one pump. If that pump failed, it's not gonna be pleasant. So we sourced out the company that had the pump in stock.
I believe I did provide 2 administration reports
Yep.
to council on this purchase.
Mayor, I'm just thinking that this is a lot to, like, I know we got this, on Friday it was sent out?
Correct.
Yeah, so I haven't had a lot of time to look at it because of the long weekend. I would like some time to go through this a little bit more detailed on my own.
Okay.
And, one of the things about the tender and procurement policy that was taken away at one point was the, resolution to accept the, expenditures. And that was never brought back, and I'd like to see that come back in again, because we have resolutions to accept miscellaneous correspondence, but we don't have resolutions to accept our finances, and the spending. So I think that should be something that we should do, even if it is a formality, but it's council giving their permission and their approval that, yes, we agree with this. And I think we should continue to do that. So it's something to consider as well.
Okay, so you're saying you want some time to look at it more thoroughly?
Yeah, I'd like to have more time to look at
Councillor
this.
Shen.
I'd like to go through it myself, line by line, and match it to our current tendering policy.
Okay.
Okay,
Councillor Shen.
just my comment, this kind of leads from the tendering and procurement into a couple of other things we have on tonight's meeting.
Yeah,
But through this tendering and procurement, there's a couple items here that we've approved in budget,
yep,
numerous times, a couple of them. And now we have it coming back to council, which is also delaying. If we're saying that we want no overages at the end of the year, like nothing left over, we want to get things done. I can't understand, following the tendering procurement policy, it's approved by council in our budget already, and then we have now a couple of items coming back to us for approvals again. So it kind of all ties in. If we're following that procurement policy, and yet we've approved it, why is it, things keep coming back to us, and I'm just wondering.
I think that will become obvious once we get to that point, why it was brought back.
Okay, there wasn't a lot of information here of
No.
why it was coming to council, so it's just,
So then, okay, so just to finish up on tendering and procurement policy, then we will, you guys want to do
I
that?
didn't look at this at all on, the weekend I was tied up, I
Okay.
didn't look at this at
Oh,
all.
okay. So then we'll bring it back in September.
yeah, we need some time to look at it.
No, that's right, that's fair.
Yeah,
So the next one then is 4.4.3. So I guess this was, why doesn't this open up here? Mine's not opening up on this one there. No, it's not that one.
this is the alert signs.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Okay, there it is.
in the report or the comparison?
The comparison.
comparison, just so we're looking at the same thing.
So the reason that it came up is because of the budget for this year was, I believe, was 20,000. And if I remember rightly, this was, it came in at 10. And there were 3 other ones that came along with it at different prices. So I thought, you know, maybe we should just take a look at it to make sure that this is what we want. I mean, we do have some money left over, and maybe we want something, an upgrade of the speed control.
So are you wondering whether or not we want 6 signs? Is that what you're wondering?
No, I'm wondering if we want 3 signs, but 3 of something which has more options.
Looking at the comparison, I'm just going by on those signs. It looks like the one that comes in at the 10,350 has all the options, and yet it's 2 weeks sooner than the 4 weeks that the rest of them are comparing to. I'm just looking to say yes.
Well, also the first one is not solar, it's battery operated, it looks like. The other ones are solar operated as well as battery. And I would
They're all
want to know
solar, are
on
they not?
13 what the
Right.
communication
They're all solar.
setup is. It says yes, but then the other ones are more specific. They say Bluetooth and remote cloud, where ATS doesn't say, it just says yes. And then memory, yes, and the other ones go yes on cloud.
They're all powered, they're all solar, Councilor Clark.
They all are solar?
Number 10, it says autonomy, battery, AC, or solar.
Right, it just, and ATS just says yes. So the Airmaster 1, 2, and 3 are, looks like they're all solar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the question is, you want battery or solar?
I believe they're all, if you look at number 9, I
Yeah.
believe they're all battery and solar.
Yeah.
With battery.
Or, it says battery or, right? Yeah, it's not specific, very specific, is it, sometimes?
No, but it's a spec, it's just following a spec, and then
Yeah.
Airmaster's got other ones up here that,
Well, then we just go with the ATS. If there's no extra features on them that we're like paying for.
Well,
I mean, I'd like to see the brochure side by side, I guess that would make more sense, right?
but is that our job? Like, we
Yeah,
put
it's
it-
not our job.
That's not really, like,
Why isn't it our job? Why can't we have input into it?
well, that's what we have managers in different departments to do, is it not?
Yeah, that's our staff.
We'll put a request in during our budget, you know, they'll tell us what we should be spec'ing to, and I'm sure they're, otherwise, you know, we'd be sitting here looking at the road tenders at every.
Yeah, but this one's simple, it's
But
basically a
I'm using,
machine.
this is one example, but
Yeah.
if we're
It's-
gonna do
it's
it
the
on this
princ-
one, then we
It's the
have to.
principle of the tendering and procurement policy, and that management is given the direction to procure speed signs, and that's what we've done. And so we're bringing it at request for council approval, but this should be in my purview to approve under my delegation of authority.
But the issue was that we had $20,000 and this came in at 10.
Right,
That's
so
the-
council
that's-
can tell me to get more than 3 signs. In our budget, we had 3 signs listed, and so that's what we've procured. That was
Okay.
the instruction and direction from council in the financial plan. If you wish us to expend the full budget, we can do that.
Go ahead, Councilman.
One comment I'll make is, the one sign, I see it's got a much greater distance, which I think is a good thing to be able to radar vehicle,
When is that?
the line 16, sorry. The other ones, you know, they from 150 to 200 meters, and then this company says up to 365 meters, which is almost double, right? Which I kind of like that, because it's, you know, not right on top of it, maybe drivers will slow down sooner when they see their.
Which one is
number.
that one?
16.
Yeah, number 16.
Stinson.
Okay.
That's also almost $7,000, like, on roads where, sorry to butt in, but on like roads like Rossmore, or like 1,200 meters, you're not even gonna see the sign at that point, or,
I don't know if anybody's gone down, the road in East St. Paul, what's that very first road as soon as you
Oh, I
go?
haven't gone down there.
What's that road called?
Hodnot?
No,
oh,
the very first one north of the perimeter, Hanson or something, and they have them on both ways on that. And it, believe me, from far away, it caught my eye, and I got on the brakes, even though I wasn't speeding, I got on the brakes right away.
It's Hodnot, I'm pretty sure.
It's not.
I think
no,
it's
not.
Hodnot, yeah, it's probably
Hodnot.
Hodnot, and there's,
No, it goes the
there's one on
same way as
Wallace,
the
too.
perimeter. Wallace.
yeah, Wallace.
That's
Okay,
Wallace,
Wallace.
that's the one, yes.
Yeah, there's one on Wallace, because it's
There's
such a
one on
long
each way
stretch.
on Wallace.
Yeah,
And
and
that
you,
one,
as soon as you see it, you go, ooh,
yep, that,
Yeah.
I would like to know what sign that is, I really like that sign, but that's,
The operating temperatures of, on line number 8 are higher on the, 3 of them for sure. See, they're down to -40 to +85, as opposed to the other one is -36 to 85.
oh, that's crucial.
Well, just
It
pointing
does
out
get
what the difference-
-40 around here. And it definitely goes over 85, we all know that.
I think that's gotta be Celsius.
Well, I like the Airmaster signed bid 3. Looks like it's got a little bit more on it. Temperature wise. I know that Councillor Pactican and I wanted one on Northumberland. I need one on Allenford, because it's a lot of speeding going on there. So if we were to buy more than one, or more than 3, where would the rest of them go?
these are mobile, are they not? Sorry.
Yeah, they are. So would you want one, Councillor Bassetti, in your ward anywhere?
I think moving them here and there, just so it's not consistently staring at the same thing going down the road, it'll remind people, oh, we're speeding, you know, you move it away from there once you kinda settle that down and you.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like the.
So
know,
do
on
you
Main
think
Street.
we need more than 3? 5 or 6?
Well, I'd like to see how these work first, see if they're making a difference, or if we have issues with these before we start ordering, you know, half a
Yeah.
dozen of them. Let's see the issues, or, you know, we don't like this, or we want bigger screens, like is something gonna, this is the first time I think
We're actually
ordering
getting some,
anything like
yeah.
this. I'd like to just,
Councilor
Are we
Campbell.
able, Michelle, are you able to reach out to East St. Paul and see if the ones that they purchased or any of these ones here that we've been quoted?
I can reach out to East St. Paul. I don't know if they'd have that information.
Why don't we just get 3 for now?
Yeah, I personally, I'm fine with, just for the discussion, some good ideas about getting more than 3. I think we're okay with the ATS traffic. It gets us what we need.
Let's start with 3.
And then,
Let's pick one. And then if we like it, we'll just order some more. We still have enough in the budget, right?
Yeah.
We could still order them in October. If we get them in 4 weeks and then we try them out, we can order some more yet.
Yeah, it's
Just
only,
get 'em
it's
in.
only a 2-week turnaround.
Let's just get 'em
It's only a
in.
2-week turnaround, so we could go up to
Yeah,
the
let's get
budget.
them in. I agree.
So which one?
I'm fine with ATS.
The first one?
Yeah.
Everyone's fine with ATS?
I like the temperature one at,
The bid number 3?
bid number 3. It's the
bid
cheaper
number
one,
1, 2, and
11,000.
3 are the same temperature.
The temperature extremes are better?
They're all the same.
No, they're not, because the operating temperature we asked for was -36 to 65.
No, but bid number 1, 2, and 3.
Airmaster bid 1, 2, and 3, yeah.
Yeah, Bidmaster 3. Just because it's a little bit cheaper. It's got an SD card in it, I guess that's what it is.
I just have a problem that, you know, we put a spec out, and I guess our managers or whoever department heads are going over this, and they're looking at the spec, I guess, that they think that we would be needing, so.
Yeah, but if they made the decision just to go with the cheaper one, and then the temperature is only 65 degrees, well, I can tell you that's only 21 Celsius.
That, 65 degrees Celsius.
Celsius.
Oh,
That's-
65
that's
degrees
right.
Celsius. Oh, that's not Fahrenheit.
We're never gonna
No.
hit that.
Oh, well then, number one's fine. I thought we're talking Fahrenheit there. I don't normally see 65 degrees Celsius.
I think ATS gives us the most flexibility to wrap up to more units if we need it. It'll get the job done.
Yeah.
I'm fine with ATS.
I think if we did ATS, try them out, we're gonna get them in 2 weeks, try them out right away. And if we like them, we get some more.
Yeah.
We still got till the end of the year.
Okay.
And does council want to give some direction on the streets, or shall we get consensus on Thursday?
Northumberland for sure.
I
I think,
need,
can we just get them in first, and then we can just kind of see where we want to start ramping them around?
We're only
yeah,
getting 3 for now.
Yeah.
We are asking on Thursday for direction on where we're putting them.
Allenford, I need one on Allenford, very badly. These people are asking for speed bumps right now. So if we can get
So
traffic to slow
I know
down.
Ms. Link will confirm with this, previous counselor had put this in budget for Rossmore, one of the ones on Rossmore. So, no ifs, ands, or buts, project has started with Rossmore.
Especially since there's gonna be construction happening on that road, it'd be good to have that up there.
Yeah. A counselor's here today, maybe they can, on question and answer period. We can ask them a question.
Okay.
So do we need more than 3 then? Because we've got the 3 already used up, boom.
Oh, we're gonna go.
They're
with three
mobile,
first.
so,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll start with those 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I lost track of where we were.
Yeah,
We're on the lighting around the pond.
yeah, 4.4.4. Yes, sir.
The only thing that I found with this one, Mayor, is there was hardly any difference between A&N and Anderson, but the difference was there was a warranty of 3 years with A&N Electric. And I like the fact that there's a warranty there. And there's no warranty at all with Anderson Electric.
Well,
Go ahead, Councilor McCampbell.
I think we should just confirm that there's no warranty before, because I know the lights typically have a warranty from the manufacturer.
Well, they were asked for warranty information on their quote, so if they had warranty, they should have put it in. The other 2 did. Can't believe that this guy actually put $95,000 for pond lighting. That must be nice pond lighting. It must be really special.
Especially when it's the same one that the guy used with the
Yeah.
quote beside it.
Yeah.
So just a question for the administration. If the warranty was required and they didn't respond, can we still accept it as a compliant bid? Because there's no indication of warranty on the analysis.
We note that it's not included, but it wouldn't disqualify someone. We could,
But did we ask them for it or no, is the question.
I can confirm.
One thing I'll just note is the bottom 2 bids are the same manufacturer, and the top 2 bids are the same manufacturer.
Okay, so we can
So-
assume there might be a 3-year?
If I may, Council?
Just go ahead.
In the tender, we have a section about warranty period. We say the warranty period shall begin on the date specified in the purchase order. The duration of the warranty period for the light shall be as follows: full unit, unlimited duration of 3 years. Note, the standard manufacturer's warranty is to be included in the bid price for the unit. The supplier shall correct at his own expense any defects in equipment due to faulty products or workmanship appearing within the warranty period.
So
So
they
we
ju-
require a full 3 years. If they can't fulfill that, they would not be approved.
So they wouldn't be tendered unless it would have had that warranty, the way I would read that.
That would be the minimum they're
That's
required.
that's a spec for it, right? So-
Yeah, I mean, if they signed their tender, then they complied. Okay, good.
And I'm wondering if we just check that.
I can confirm by Thursday if
Yeah.
council wishes.
Yeah. And then at number 3, base mount is very easy to install and can be placed almost anywhere. Why is there a difference between those 4? One says yes and one says 1 meter, and one says 900 millimeters. Like, why are there measurements there? Can any of you fellows tell me that?
Actually, I looked at some of them when I got some of them put in
Yeah.
previous, and just different websites you look at, they put it in different ways, and, because there's no power going to these, they're all solar, and they're put in with screw piles. So,
So I have a question for our CAO. Are these the same lights that I have over at the path on River's Edge? Because you know how much fun those have
those
been.
are solar?
Those are solar. I'd have to confirm if they're the exact same.
Because these, ask them if these are the ones that are replacing the ones that we have at River's Edge. Because what happened at River's Edge is the circuit boards went on them. So now we've had to rip out all the original lighting and put in brand new lighting. Brand new everything. So I want to make sure that they're not, that we get those ones that, if we just gonna replace bulbs if we need to in the
Right.
future.
I'll follow up and have that answer for Thursday.
Good, thank you.
On that note, can, whatever we decide out of tonight, or looking at those, can we be consistent on, even through, I believe, Parkview's putting in some of these too? Around some of their trails and that, or their lake and that kind of stuff?
Do we have that in the
So that our
development
public
plan?
works department would be able to have backup sitting there, parts for one style rather than, depends where it's going.
Right. Our planning and economic development officer would speak to that in a development agreement. So
Yeah.
it'd be good to raise with her next time she brings that.
Okay.
We done with it, or
I think so.
move on to the next one? Supply and installation of security cameras, 4.5.
Okay, the one thing
Go
I
ahead.
was
You
good.
Just hold it, Councillor Bichetti, vice first.
Just a question, is this TEC video, is that the same one that does this building? Just to be.
Our municipal office and our access center.
Okay.
Who does that?
The
Tech
low
video.
bid.
Tech video?
Councillor,
My question is, what is the annual fee for security?
There is none.
So, how do you do you're just taking pictures? Is that all you're doing?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure that I understand the question.
Okay, so on our security cameras that we have, what it does is actually, it actually has memory on it.
Yes, these systems.
And it's, so we can play it all back?
Correct. These systems would have memory that we can
Mhm.
go back and replay.
Okay.
And extract videos, the cameras are sort of wide angle, you can zoom in, they're really high definition, so
Are
that
they
this.
on your laptop or on your?
No, we get a monitor, a large monitor,
Okay.
which is included in the price. One person would be administrator of that at the Public Works office. And how the system works and the service, I can speak to, as we do have that at the municipal office and access center. So we pay for the supply and installation, and then we'd have them service if anything goes wrong. Sometimes when we have a power outage, the system can get knocked offline, so they come and almost always free of charge, will quickly reset us, service us, and make sure that our video is online. They do monitor it so that if any of the cameras go offline, they quickly notify us, because in our case, in our office, we aren't looking at that footage on a daily basis, so they are constantly monitoring for the offline notice. So it's really good service that we have from them.
Councillor Paquette?
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question. It's just, I just want to know how the bids came back, one with 12 cameras, the other one with 8, and the other one with 9. How did we spec out this tender?
Right, it was a request for quotation, and so this initially went out as outdoor cameras only, then was revised to include the indoor cameras. And I'm just I just want to confirm if it was a request for quotation where they proposed an amount of cameras that would be adequate. I know that all three bids did a physical assessment of the site.
Good. They're not that far apart, actually.
No, they're all very competitive. I apologize.
Sorry, that's
Is that
just
you?
me. That's me. I'm moving my battery around here.
No, it's just a natural curiosity on my part, that one of them submitted 12 cameras and the others were only at 9 and 8. So I was just wondering, it's good value, I just wasn't sure if we asked for a certain amount of cameras and Tech Video just wanted to exceed our requirements, or?
I apologize. I don't see that we specifically asked. I don't see that we specifically asked for an amount. Just a quotation on what a system would entail.
If I may,
Go
just,
ahead.
I had a couple of quotes in my business and they usually come in and they'll assess how many they think they need. It's just how I didn't ask for a number, and they all came in with different numbers.
Yeah,
Okay.
Councillor Campbell?
I had the same thing.
Fair enough.
The only thing is, I'm sort of looking at these quotes very closely, and cameras can vary in quality by a lot, and I see, one's 2.8 millimeter lens, and the other's a 4 millimeter lens. The only thing I would like to see something that gives the camera description a little bit more closely, because we could be getting very pixelated pictures versus maybe the middle guy's top of the line. I'm not sure. I would just like to see, because one guy's got 10 terabytes of hard drive, the other two have 4 terabytes of hard drive.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Right, so we're talking just about storage
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
The cameras, in our quotation, it was required that it would be able to capture license plates, so all of them would meet that qualification.
Okay.
So they do have here, Councillor Campbell, on the first one, 12 terabytes recording. Just one line down.
But that contradicts his very first line. With
Yeah, I
4
know.
terabyte, like, that's what I'm saying. I'm looking at it and it doesn't make sense. The very first line says 4 terabyte hard drive, and then it says for a total of 12 terabyte recording. I guess there's a 4 and an 8 for 12. That's what's weird, because
Depends
I'm
on.
putting up new cameras at my house, so that's why I'm familiar with cameras a fair amount here as well, so.
Any other questions?
So would you want that answered? Yeah.
I'm, with Mrs. Shaw's, saying what the quote was or what the specifications were for, I'm okay with that.
And then, if council can give us some direction for Thursday, where would you like the funds to be taken? Because this wasn't in budget, we do need to specify if you'd like it in operating or from a reserve. Our Director of Finance has said that either our Public Works Reserve or IT Reserve would be appropriate for this purchase.
Yeah, I would say IT. My thing would be IT.
Councilor Bichetti?
We just saved 10 grand on the speed radar signs, where did that come from? We've already budgeted that, so it's, well, we might get more, but we
Good
can
point.
take it out of there for now, because we've already budgeted and taxed, like, it's already been,
She still has to designate though, like she has to job.
well, I don't know where that, I just was
She had
wondering
to-
where that one.
Coming out of capital development, the speed signs.
So,
Even if we
maybe
don't
not
use
quite
it, it
as
goes back
appropriate for
into the
this.
No,
reserve,
yeah, okay,
right?
that's-
Pardon?
If we don't use it, it goes back into the reserve anyway.
Yes, so any expenditure, if we budgeted 20 and we only spend 10, we have the 10 remaining in the reserve to be used next year. You could earmark it for 3 additional signs if these ones work out well. My recommendation would be to see how it works over the winter.
So-
Or you can spend it on a different project, capital item.
So for these cameras, would you recommend IT reserve?
Either or, Public Works Building Reserve or the IT Reserve, either or.
What are the balances and?
Uh, The Public Works Building Reserve is 555,000 and the IT Reserve is 81,000. Now, we have a little bit of funds earmarked yet to come out of there. This is as of June. But there is sufficient funds to cover this expense.
So we could go Public Works then? Just
Yeah, go
keep the
public, go
IT
Public Works.
Public Works, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so next is the 4.5.1, request for service.
So if I could, Mr. Mayor,
No problem.
council will notice we've added some additional reports. You had commented that you'd like to see some year-to-date figures as well as the monthly figures. So we've added that in for your information. You can see that we're decreasing, our peaks are decreasing as we see typically that we have peaks for Public Works when there's snow removal, and we have peaks for things like bylaw in spring once the snow melts and shows everyone's properties. So it's typical numbers. We're working hard at resolving all our requests for service.
I just want to clarify, so we get more than one complaint on a particular item. They close one, and then that, so is that it's only one day closed. So does that affect the rate of open, how long it was open for? You know, there's an average of, I saw there was an average time. Average number of days to close a request, which is 4, so does that affect that one? To me, I'm thinking it does.
Yes, so the reason that we do that is, you know, for example, if we had a concern, say with a park, that we needed some repair on a playground structure, and we have 5 residents report it. What we would do is we would compile it into one request for service record. It is 5 complaints. We know that. They're all registered initially as their own, but we compile it into one for simplicity in response, so that we know that we are in fact responding to all the people who raised the request for service. It doesn't diminish the number of our recording of how many people brought the request to us. In a long-term situation, it would affect the opening and closure dates, but that the first one would be where you want to record from. That would be the correct date that the problem or whatever the circumstance started. So I think it's fair.
I guess, if, when you put a request for service in, you get a number, you get an identification number. So that tells me that the individual that got that identification number can go ahead and ask about how that is going. So what happens to
Correct.
the identification number when you close it?
Well, we would send a communication to them updating them of the reference number.
So they would get a new number.
That's correct. We wouldn't do that without telling someone what the new record is, so that when they call in and inquire on the process or ask for an update, that we and they are referencing the correct file.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Just a general question. I noticed that on the Public Works, I'm just looking for some feedback in terms of, the noxious weeds. It's open 12, there's 3 closed. There's obviously a lot of complaints coming in. What's the RM's capacity to deal with these? How does this all work with regards to noxious weeds? How do they get resolved?
Right, so we follow the Noxious Weeds Act, so there's some requirements for notice periods that we are obliged to follow. What we'll do is we'll contact the owner, raise the issue. At that point, we can say, you have to do it within this time frame, or if you'd like, we'll do it and we can invoice you. So sometimes that gets resolved quickly. There's other instances where we have to go through the entire notice period, and in summer, that's a lot of growth, so we get a lot of calls, usually, on the same property. But once it's, in that process, it's time that resolves that, where we have to meet certain deadlines for notice for property owners. There are instances where, when it's a plant that could pose, a health risk, that we can deal with it immediately. There's some plants that cause a burning on skin, things like that we can address on public spaces immediately. But of course, when it's on a private property, there's usually timelines that lengthen those closures.
We have one dedicated person.
And one
That's Terry
dedicated person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, thanks for the insight, appreciate it.
Anyone else have any questions? Still, yes, we got more than half closed, eh?
Not the Northumberland one.
So
waiting for that.
so we're 5.52, which was January to July 31st. I don't know if you have any questions on those, or did you look at those already, or was that all part of that? 4.52.
I think that we need to improve still dramatically. There's a lot of people that are phoning me and saying that there's just things not getting done. And I know Councillor Pactican and I have a joint complaint on a property on Northumberland, and it's just not getting done. We've had no updates recently, and people are very upset. So there's still lots of room for improvement here. And we're down one, so, hopefully we can remedy some of this.
Okay. 4.5, no, wait, sorry, we did that one. 4.53, educational briefing evaluation criteria. This is more or less to set a date of when we can develop our criteria for evaluation of our future CAO. So we should have something in place before anyone gets hired, so. Just so that we,
Oh, we're booking an educational briefing
Yes.
for that. Okay.
Yes.
I was reading it differently.
yeah. Booking, so what dates do you have available?
I feel like this is the cart before the horse.
No, it's not.
No, we should have this out before somebody.
Yes.
Oh, you mean you don't agree, is what you're saying?
Yeah, we should have a policy on this before somebody's, guess officially, somebody's in there, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, at least you know what, then we're not,
Are you not gonna hire the person until we have the evaluation criteria?
No, I don't think so.
well, I don't know, I guess, you know, we guys gotta set a date for it so that we have it ready so that it's in place when he does come.
Books.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, you may not have it done by the time you hire somebody.
well, that could be true, but you never know.
It's better now than before the evaluations do.
Yes. So now we have flexibility, we have somewhat flexibility, so.
So you're looking for dates?
Yes.
Next week?
What's next week? Oh, next week is the 14th. Well, there's Thursday and, Wednesday and Thursday is not,
Thursday, we have that tennis Manitoba.
yeah. So we got Monday and
14th, 15th?
Tuesday, yeah, 14, 15.
I'm okay. I'm
What do you think
okay.
of
Always
September,
in the
Dorothy?
summer.
Counselor Clyber, September?
September, yeah, that would be nice. Why do we have to do it now?
We have the 11th and the 13th and the 29th. And the 4th of September. 4th is September's a holiday, right?
Yeah.
11th, 13th, or 29th. We got a cow meeting on the 12th.
Pardon me?
September 12th, we have a cow meeting.
I'm open, so.
Yeah, September 12th is Cal.
Yes.
We could do it right after. Or we could do it during Cal, but we'd have to go in camera on that. Right?
Correct.
Let's set it for the 12th of September.
12th of September?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll do it after? Or we're gonna go in camera, or?
Put it right at the end of the meeting in camera, and then we come out and.
Yeah.
Okay. That will do that.
So in camera at September committee?
Yes.
We made a decision on the date right away.
So then that's off the books. That's done, that's done. Let's see, so now we got 5.1. The Rockwood propellant plant. It's just a response from them, from our question in January. Any comments on it, or? None?
No.
Okay. Then we have a letter from the Minister of Environment and Climate, Conservation and Climate Fund letter, basically telling us what we had for, that we accepted, we were given some money for our food processors,
Food sector.
which is a welcome surprise.
Yes, so I will say, council, this is the entire budgeted expense for our food cycler program. So we're really excited about this grant. It was a very welcome surprise to be approved.
Good.
Thank
Great.
you. Thank you for applying.
Where are we at as far as food cyclers? Do we still have some left?
Yes, so, pardon me, you can expect our phase 2 of our food cycler program to be launched later this month. So we've had our first set of deliveries. We have a few that need to be picked up. So what we'll do is we'll launch the second phase. I'm sure there's been lots of positive feedback in the community.
So we're sold out the first phase?
Well, we had approximately 150 orders in our first phase.
Okay.
And we wanted to break it up just because we have a limit of storage areas.
Yeah.
And it has to be reasonable to get the machines to our office. So that was sort of the number that we could accommodate. And what we have, we will launch again and see what our uptake is. We have also a plan to contact our business community because our initial launch was to residential, which is great, but businesses in our community could also benefit by reducing their waste, which they pay to remove for businesses. The municipality doesn't pay for garbage collection, so it could reduce their operating costs. So that's what we're going to be doing, and we hope to have the project wrapped up for September.
I'm using mine, I like it. Anybody else get one? Did you get one,
I
Mike?
did, yeah.
Yeah, and do you like it?
I haven't used it.
I've used mine about 5 times, and it's great. I like it. I couldn't believe it. I actually put meat in there and did a cycle of it, and it came out like flakes, like compost. It was great. It's fantastic.
In our office, we have one, it's mainly food scraps for lunches. We run it 2 to 3 times a week. It makes a big difference,
Huge difference.
huge difference.
And it's actually good if something's going bad in your fridge, you can just throw it in there, cut it up and throw it in there.
Yeah.
And you can clean out your fridge that way instead of throwing it in the garbage, so,
Yep.
no, it looks really good.
Nice.
So next is 5.3, Minister of Sport and Culture Heritage, the community mural. We had funding for that now, first installment of 1,200.
Okay,
Our
well-
CEO is looking for input.
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you'll see that we have applied and received grant funding for our mural. So we plan to do an RFP. Of course, it doesn't feel like it, but we are running out of season to do an outdoor painting project. We'd like to issue an RFP next week and have it completed this fall. So what we are looking for from council to include in our RFP is the mural inspiration. So in our last mural, we asked for the focus of the mural was, a certain theme and should reflect the following, that West St. Paul is located on Treaty 1 land and our historic and current connection to the Red River, particularly the ferry. So these were the sort of criteria that when in our request for proposal, we asked artists to prepare and propose something to the municipality. I'm looking for that guidance with the mind for the timeline that we want to release an RFP next week.
Councilor Clyburn?
Yeah, so the first mural cost is $25,000. Now, we said we would go ahead with if this was funded. This is $2,500, not $25,000. So I don't particularly want to go ahead and spend $22,500 of the taxpayers' money for the mural when we had agreed that this would have to be funded by the government if we were going to go ahead with it. And it was fully funded last time.
Councilor Bichetti?
So just for clarity, it wasn't fully funded last time with grant money.
How much was
I believe it
funded?
was a similar amount.
Boy,
I think it was about half.
it was about half.
I think it was
It was
12.5
substantial.
or so, yeah.
Yeah, This is-
This time was a little,
this is like nothing.
yeah, it peanuts.
Are
Peanuts.
we allowed
Last.
to take this grant and hold it, or does it have to get used?
With most grants, they have to be used within the time period or we have to pay it back. So they'll issue us the first payment of $1,200 or so. If we don't complete the project within that time frame, we'll have to pay back the $1,200.
And it also reflects poorly on the municipality to ask for a fund, get approved, and then say, no thanks. We'd
Well-
rather not have.
But if the project's $25,000 and you're giving me $2,000, it's, not a lot you're giving me for that project.
Right. But council did approve 25 grand in the budget.
And we said, when we did the budget talks, that it would have to be a large grant to cover this. And this is not a large grant. This is not even, this is like not even 10% of the overall cost. I would ask the taxpayer, do you want to fund $22,000 for a mural now?
We did ask them in a public hearing for our financial plan. I don't recall a comment on it.
Yeah, and I do recall we said if this was fully funded, we would go ahead with it. This is not fully funded. This is
Problem with
like peanuts.
fully funding, you'll never get full funding for a project like this.
But we're not even getting
Right.
50%.
No. I do have notes here, though. It does depend on grant funds. But we do have 25,000 earmarked out of our green space, which is beautification of an area, to pay for the mural.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think you asked us for a theme to the mural. I think we should be looking at some of the historical sites, like we have Eamesville Park, we have Alderstone where the ferry went across. There's a lot of that in the history book of West St. Paul that they could take murals right out, or pictures right out of, and collage that into something. And there's more, I just mentioned those two that.
Well,
I
I'm
think
not
that's
in
what we're
favor
talking
of
about,
spending
too,
this.
budgeting, Historical, yes. Should be.
Just build
Yeah.
In my opinion, $25,000 can go a long way to do something else.
Councillor Campbell?
You know, it's definitely not gonna hurt anything, you know, just because we put out an RFP doesn't mean we have to use it either, right? So let's see where it comes in.
So, wait, put an RSPF out?
Yeah, whatever, RFQ or RFP, whatever Ms. Shaw said, yeah.
Yeah.
Request for proposal.
Yeah.
So this budgeted amount would be in my delegated authority to approve. So if council wishes to have a special meeting, we can review the proposals that we receive. I wouldn't suggest waiting till your next regular planning meeting, which would be September 14th. And then I think you have a problem with timing for weather and painting.
What can you get in?
Don't
by
we have
Thursday?
one at the end of August?
Sorry?
What can you get in by Thursday?
So I guess, just,
I understand what Ms. Shaw is saying. I'm, you know, we have it budgeted. I know we talked about looking for substantial grants. I understand what Councillor Clyburn is saying. I also understand what Ms., I'm gonna butcher your last name, Crystal says. So about that, we're not gonna get, you know, substantial funding for it. You know, I'm okay with it, you know, as much as maybe others aren't. I am okay with going ahead with it.
or you going ahead with mural?
With letting Ms. Shaw put out and let her, within her privy.
Despite with what we got for the grant?
Yes.
Right, okay. That's why I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Good. So, yeah, okay. So, okay, well, guess we'll talk about it on Thursday, right? Is there a resolution for that then?
No.
No? Oh, okay. So then you're gonna put out an RQPF?
A request for proposal. So I'm hoping to be able to advertise next Thursday. Typically, we give a 2-week window to respond.
Okay.
So we would advertise, contact known muralists and other artists that might be interested. The artists that bid previously on our mural, get some word out that we're looking for this kind of project. It's a big ask for a request for proposal to, come up with a design and build your proposal response. So I'm hoping that 2 weeks will be reasonable. I'm gonna refine those dates next week.
Okay. Anything else? Nothing? Okay.
Well, I would just say this, that the grant is for 2023, 2024, right? So you could, if you run out of time right now because it's getting cold, you can do it in the spring too. Right, you can carry it over to spring.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the dates.
Right.
Yeah, you look at the dates, because you've got 2023, 2024 here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was council's instruction for us to complete these carryovers and our capital items. That is what we are aiming for, where we have the ability to. We are hoping to accomplish all of your goals and projects for this year.
Yeah, but if it gets too cold, it's not gonna be
Yep.
good to paint when it's that cold,
No.
cold outside. I would say if you want my direction on, I don't agree with going ahead with this, but if you want a direction for subject matter, I would say put the ferry up there, that used to ferry everybody back and forth, and put the municipal hall up there with it. The river, the municipal hall, and the ferry going back and forth, that was the original. And actually, East St. Paul has a picture of it, of the ferry.
I believe the ferry is incorporated in the first mural,
No, the wagon is,
the wagon.
It's in the West St. Paul history.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But our municipal hall should go up there, because this is a historical building, it would be nice if it was up there.
Okay, so next on the agenda is new business, 6.1, newsletter. I'll have our CAO, Assistant CAO, Acting CAO talk about it.
Well, so we're well in progress for our August newsletter. The mayor asked that we bring this to council. If you had any ideas or wanted to contribute, we were looking for that input from council. I did have, some asks to do some photos at the newly opened Grassmere pedestrian bridge and in our new, officially finished Legends Park playground and green space. So those are ideas if we could accommodate getting the 5 of you together for a road trip. I'd like to be able to do that, as well as anything that you'd like to have input or comment on.
Did we get a picture for the golf tournament? That way, right? We should have got a picture.
Okay.
If you invite me next time, I'll take your picture.
We did very well, as a matter of fact.
So are you all right with what our Acting CEO was proposing for the newsletter? Do you want to add anything, any ideas, or?
I'd like to do another run of the what do you call it, the recycling program, put it in again.
Sure.
Say phase 2's coming,
Oh, food cycler?
yeah,
Okay.
just, like get it out there, advertising for that. Do we have any upcoming events that we'd like to highlight in the community?
Well, we're going to be highlighting the Tennis Manitoba
Right,
event
that's a good one.
this month. We are going to we plan to highlight our little libraries in communities. We have a few local residents who have completed in notable sports events, so we're going to feature a few residents in that regard.
Did we have the fire team, curling team in there?
Yes, we had the curling team as they were going and the results. We also have, I believe, 4 members of our fire department completing in the fire and police games that are happening right now.
They're
So
done, but yeah.
Yes, pardon me. So we've interviewed them
That's good.
and are going to include that.
The new
It's a
pumper.
highlight for our community.
The new pumper.
Yeah, the new pumper.
And if we get delivery of the new pumper, that'll be a front page.
Oh, they don't have
But
the
we have the
delivery? I
pictures.
just saw picture, they sent us pictures.
That was at Acres, at the manufacturing building. So we haven't got delivery of the pumper, but it is coming. I believe it's expected later this month or early September. So if we can accommodate it in this issue, if not, it'll be featured in our next.
Great.
And we'll have Christmas lights on it for them.
Yes.
One of the things I would like a reminder of in the newsletter is our noise bylaw. And if we could remind people that fireworks are illegal, I have people setting off fireworks all the time by my house.
Okay.
And I know Rowley Farms has a real problem with it because of the cattle. They kind of go crazy when people are setting off fireworks. So, you know, if we can remind people that that is not allowed, and then also that what the noise bylaw is.
Sure.
And what time they need to be quiet.
Okay.
And Councillor Bichetti, you had a issue this weekend, so.
No. With what's allowed in public parks. For, you know, from a little family picnic to 150 people with stacks for speakers, like just noise and no one else being able to access the park. So just to be aware of that.
Will do.
Yeah, I think part of the problem was the road was blocked off, right?
The whole park was.
Yeah, you can't block off any roads, that's one thing, so. We just need to remind them not to block off any roads, and noise levels have to be kept down.
Well, the noise is tough, right, because we have that 10 o'clock noise bylaw.
Yeah,
So having the noise, well, I guess it's where it's permitted, you know, it's, you're not gonna have a DJ set up in a park. But
The noise bylaw is descriptive, so it doesn't mean that any noise is permitted until 10 o'clock, so there's still some guidelines, we can speak to that.
yeah,
I think the
you can't crank it up.
enforcement ones,
Yeah.
the people enforcing it need to be notified of that, because what residents were told is that your noise bylaw says 10 o'clock, so we can't do anything about it till 10 o'clock. And that's what they were being told when they phoned, not here, but.
Okay, we should connect on that.
I don't wanna see too much.
Yeah, okay. And if we need to be more descriptive in our bylaw, we shall be. We can review that bylaw.
Okay, next on the agenda is question period, so. Got any questions?
Albert, 312 Edwin Avenue. First, I'll say I would really listen to all the conversation tonight, and that I would like to congratulate you for bringing back, I think, two critical pieces of information that help with the transparency and then enhance accountability. So that was including again the comparison sheets on tenders, and then also having added this final sheet on capital expenditure projects and the financial plan. So from the financial plan, I have a couple of quick questions. Perhaps still confused on this, but this is regarding, I'm looking at general operating fund statement of operations, page 1. And in the middle of the page is the unconditional government transfers, so provincial, which I believe is the municipal operating grant, and federal, which is the gas tax. So on the provincial operating grant, a really quick overview, putting in perspective, I went back a decade, and in 2013 it was 74,000. It changed to 75,000 in 2014 and stayed at that until COVID. So 75,000 is, I call it probably in the municipal budget kind of chicken change. But at COVID, it then went to almost $500,000. It went to 428,894 in 2020, and it stayed there for 3 years, and now this year is at 785,000, so it's moved from the $500,000 to $750,000. And I have a letter here from the minister stamped, the RM stamp is June 6th of this year. And so on the back of that letter, it says that it has this $785,499.37. That the first payment was in March of 2023, $170,151. and the second payment in May, which was $307,674. So I'm not sure how those are accounted for in here, because I'm seeing the 330,000, which I can have it close to the second payment, 307, and I'm not sure how the 170,000 is accounted for in March.
I don't know if, can you speak to it now, or do you need some more time to
No,
look at?
yes, so we received, 2 payments. The second payment was less than what they stated on their letter. I have, an email following up in regards to why. I haven't received a response.
Okay, so they gave us less. So
They gave us
this-
less, and I don't know if it has to do with, in part with, reporting that we need to do on our part, or if it was something on their part. Like I said, I haven't received a response yet.
Okay, so the 330 that's in the report now is a cumulative one?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you, that's that. And then this letter says that it wants the municipalities to report on how they're using that funding, so I'm sure that's somewhat tied to an election year, but they also asked to identify high-level outcomes achieved in 2022. So last year's sort of $500,000, do we know how that was spent? Because it's just, I think, deposited into the operating account.
So I would imagine that would have been explained in that report that you have to create?
Yes, so I have submitted the report to the province. We use these funds to offset our expenditures to reduce the mill rate. So it is used to offset general government, protective services, which is our fire department, our transportation and recreation.
Okay, so then with that large increase that we saw in 2020, I would have hoped that we would have seen quite an offset.
So
Is
what they did in 2020 is they adjusted, or not, I think it was 2020. They changed the operating fund, so where you originally saw 75,000, it was 3 different funding model or funding methods. In 2020, I believe, I'm pretty sure that's the year that they combined all 3 into one. So that's why you saw that big jump all of a sudden from 75,000 to almost $500,000.
Okay, and then the jump this year is perhaps in relation to
Additional
the
funding
census.
that they have approved this year, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. And then another quick one is in relation to this new report, which is the final page, which now kind of shows us the progress on the project. So the paving on Naglus and Rimmer Road, I remember there was a question to one of the citizens, I believe a month or so ago, in the committee of the whole meeting, regarding whether or not the person thought it was fair for funding from the larger municipality to be used for something that just benefits a few individuals. And I believe that was in relation to the sewer LID. But this Maglus, it's using the gas tax, which is, we know, unconditional funding, almost $1 million. And when I went on the Red River planning map, it shows this as a cul-de-sac, and it shows 32 homes. So that kind of makes that question kind of moot, because I believe that the RM each year decides where it's going to prioritize. So my question would be, will council commit to priority consideration of Councilor Russetti's major project that's on the books for the LID? Because we can also see that there's somewhat of an arbitrary nature of how and when monies are moved around, and that's fine, and it's great when it's actually transparent. Lighting in the trails came from capital development, but lighting for River's Edge is from the gas tax, and a bench in Rivercrest is from the green space. So things are moved around, and there is sort of flexibility to do that. And I think that staff makes the suggestions, council makes the final decision. A lot of what your discussion was tonight is, it's tricky when you get moving between that governance and oversight and into operations. And I think a lot of the conversation that you were having tonight, perhaps it maybe helped when you're looking at the tendering and procurement, that if the staff, they should know those things. If they come to you with a fuller admin report that would actually give you the justification for the best value, not necessarily the cheapest, you'll be able to see on your comparison sheet what is the cheapest. If they, in conversations and their knowledge, can tell you, we think that this is the better value because of that, then you're not left to have to kind of banter that around. That could help.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I just say,
Yep, go ahead.
just put a comment in there? I like your question, how you're asking about, the money going out to Magla Streets, but can I just ask that we defer your question for a couple of weeks, because council's in discussion on,
Yeah.
and trying to work with the engineers and stuff on the sewer project, so I'd rather not someone come on and say, yes, commit to you. Just let us look at all the different options, and I just don't want you to feel like you're not getting answered on your question.
No,
But it's
I'm
something
fine
that we
to
can't
remind you all that
answer
there aren't any options
in,
there.
thank you.
Councillor Catlett?
Ms. Shaw can probably answer this one for me. So part of Maglis, was that not also supposed to be done by the developer? And then the monies, they were faltered there, so, the people that were buying in that area, they had an expectation that they were gonna be living on a paved road when they bought those properties also, just so that there is, that we're all on the same page here with that, right, so.
Yeah, that's similar to the legends, I understand, that there was also a follow through.
Yeah, it's something very, very similar, for sure. So, just so that's part of the reason why RM money is being used for a small group.
Yep.
Is because they bought property and were understanding when they bought the property that they weren't gonna be living on paved roads, so.
And it's a fair thing that we are a community and we're in this collectively. The vast majority of the money for the RM is the public money from taxes. And so we would want everybody eventually, as they have a need, that gets prioritized. And I see that does happen. And that's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Eleanor Lee, 1045 Causham Road. 3 quick questions. Did council have a written report regarding the pavement repairs? I sat listening to Mr. Romano's report, and I was feeling sorry for you if you didn't have a written report, because that was a lot of information to process when given verbally. That's the first question. Second question was, and I think possibly the answer was alluded to, but I'm not sure. Second question is council aware of the pond in Parkview Point in connection with lighting around the ponds in the trails? That took place. We have to pick up the bill for that because I believe it wasn't in the DA that the developer did it. But I get the impression that council was sure that the lighting in Parkview Point around the pond will be picked up by the developer. So my question is that the case?
Okay.
And the third question was, where will the mural be located if the mural is in fact a goal?
Okay. I don't know, are we able to answer any of those questions, or we have to go back to?
Well, if you'd like, I can answer 2 of them.
Sure.
So council wasn't provided with a written report, but certainly if any of them request it in writing, we can provide. As far as what's required in park viewpoint development agreements, I'd have to follow up. I can't speak to the trail lighting around ponds, but I can look into that. Where the mural will be located is opposite of the current mural. So on the path, the trail, that goes under the perimeter
High
bridge.
visibility location. Okay, thank you.
It's a widely used path.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question for you. You were the counselor for when we first put the alert signs in. Where did you originally want your
The
alerts?
original one was the first, I think, in either 2019, the first budget we worked on together as a council.
Right.
And I said, I proposed a pilot project. And council said, that sounds good. And that we would choose and move. It wasn't for any particular ward. I got my black binder from finance still. And
So did you ever propose a particular street?
yes, in the last budget.
You proposed
I
Ross?
proposed, and that didn't happen, okay?
Yeah.
And we were gonna share where it was gonna go. That didn't happen. The next time, well, it never happened either. Or it wasn't approved, or something. I can't remember. I'd have to look at my budget binders. I certainly can fill in the details. Then I got a little ticked off about what had happened in the past. So I said, here, yeah, let's have the pilot project. But also I want it for Rossmore and I want it in Riverdale. No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, that is it for question period, so now we're gonna go into in camera. In camera, we had a discussion on CAO recruitment, and we are now gonna be adjourning the council meeting at 9:55 PM on Tuesday, August 8th. Adjourned.